Hi. Hello. Hello. Test. Test. Hello. Do, 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 do.
I'm gonna make it start 10 minutes late though.
Okay, no worries. This is printed. Um, it's good to go.
Do I have a few minutes? No.
You have lots of time, but it's all set up for
Okay.
after, and I'll just crop it to whenever you start.
Okay.
Then you remember this is forward and backwards.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, dokie.
Cool. And then if you need me.
Awesome.
Not far.
Thank you very much.
Feeling better now? Much better. Yeah.
Today. I am. Go online. I don't know how I agreed to do something at 9 a.m. on a Monday. I have a standing call. Mornings that I do at least the first 10 minutes of.
I'm in no hurry. If you wanna go do it.
Well, so far I'm the only person here.
Oh, on the other call too?
No, on this.
On this one? Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so if, in theory, I'm unmuted, if someone pops up,
Okay,
do you want to just say we're gonna start a couple minutes late?
Yeah. not a problem, man. No, no problem at all. She has us on unmuted. Thank you for getting that. So. Good morning. Anne is on another call for a few minutes. Okay. She's gonna be a little bit late. Okay. She has us on unmute, so if we see anybody. Need to tell them. Okay.
Who's Anne De Silva?
Yes, yeah.
Working with Boston Sellers.
Just gonna go grab my notes.
Can you guys hear us? Cole and Travis?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, 10 minutes, she said.
Was it either of you in Las Vegas stuff?
I wasn't.
None of us.
None of us. Next year, right?
I felt like it was one of those events that I have a lot of Facebook friends from here now, so it was all week I was seeing people having fun, and I was like, oh, I wanna go next year.
It would be nice to go. I heard.
It would be,
it's
I'm glad I didn't this year, just cause I'm so new, but I think, yeah, it looks like it's fun.
Heard it's so pricey though.
Is it really, oh, is it really expensive?
$25 for a cup of coffees.
Oh,
For
just
17.
really?
Coffee.
in Las Vegas.
And nothing.
I never knew that. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't go, but just. The money I'd have to save to go.
That's
This year. We saved you.
Did you hear that they're making an announcement about the Bedford Ferry?
No.
At 11 o'clock.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's gonna be an announcement made at the Bedford Yacht Club.
Okay.
And it's to be regarding the new fast ferry from Mill Cove too.
It's about time.
I know, right?
20
Well,
years in the making.
that's what they were saying on the radio is like, you know, is this real? Because it's like, it was talked about like for so long.
And it'll still be time to get developed.
I was just gonna say, by the time they do terminals and figure out
Yeah,
where
it's-
the hell everybody's gonna park,
Yeah,
right? There's nowhere to park as
I guess
it
it all
is.
starts with an announcement though, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I guess it'll, they're making some sort of, it was announced on X or I guess that's Twitter.
Yeah.
I heard about that yesterday. I was doing an open house down here and someone mentioned that it was gonna be announced. I don't know how they knew, but there's also gonna be a library. I think, with the ferry terminal.
Oh, you know that.
Yeah, it would be really nice if it,
If it actually happens, yeah.
one of those things with development, right? They may say it.
They say it and never do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know, it'd be so cool to have the library there, like, it would be beautiful.
Yeah, Mill Cove, because coming all the way down here to the library just puts you through that much extra traffic.
Yeah, and it's kind of being like a little.
Yeah, and it's small.
Yeah,
It's very small.
Bedford's big enough that.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
That's
it
right.
would be really nice, because I think it's nice to work sometimes, like to go and just have the
Yeah.
people around.
Like, it's not gonna be at a coffee shop where you feel like you have to buy coffee every
Yeah.
hour and you're like.
Yeah.
You just go to the library and work and quiet and
Yeah.
you kind of network with people while you're there.
That's it. People watch.
Exactly. I love people watching. I totally do that all the time. I don't live on a street where I could people watch though, so like. And then you gotta look creepy.
You gotta learn how to be kind of.
Yeah, indiscreet,
Subtle,
or discreet, yeah. I'm not creepy
Yeah,
at all.
a little bit late.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Look at everybody's weekend. Yeah. Are you finding the market at all?
I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we had 2 listening appointments on the weekend.
Oh, nice.
But I wrote an offer for a buyer.
Wow, that's
What?
That's nice.
Nice.
That's amazing.
What's
Yeah.
their-
Are you a little team?
Yeah, big event enough.
Okay.
Yeah,
Were there multiple offers on the?
I think we're 5.
Maybe you guys
Wow.
got
And
it.
you guys got it, good for you.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Did you have to go, like, I know you can't say price or anything, but did you have to go way over there, or is it not like it used to be?
It's nowhere near like.
Oh.
Yeah, they went over a little bit.
Of course, yeah.
It was
Just a
just,
little of it.
it's really specific property.
Yeah.
And it really suited them. So
Right,
it was hard for them to be in competition and not go.
right.
Yeah.
For sure. Exactly. If it was a cookie cutter and wanted to five, which
But it's like a very specific.
very unique.
Yeah.
It fit that, yeah.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, because I did like a house hunting trip for a client last week and but we're kind of looking for something not very generic, like he just wants a 1 bedroom condo, because he's gonna be commuting from New Brunswick to Halifax. From Moncton to Halifax, like on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
So anyways, but there was one of them where they were holding offers and he was like, well, how much over would you go? And I was just like, you know, for me, I was thinking, well, it's not like it used to be, right? You know, it's not like it used to be like 100,000 over, you know, I'm thinking it's closer to like, you know, 20, 30 if there's multiple offers. And depending if it's 2 offers, maybe not, if it's 10 off, like, right? So, anyway, he didn't end up offering on any that we saw last week because it's that all, it's a whole other story. But anyways, but that was just kind of my, I was like, that's a really good question, like how much are people?
Yeah.
Like,
I've been kind of watching the sales.
Yeah.
Like especially like I'm in Beaver Bank, so I live kind of Sackville, Beaver Bank. all
Yeah.
over. And if you like check the list price and sale prices, like in the market monitor, I've been kind of watching it and they're not going hugely over, but
No.
sometimes over or just under list.
yeah,
You have to remember that too, sometimes people will offer far more than they're willing to pay and then try to renegotiate.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Is that how?
Based on inspection. I
Yeah.
had one, it was,
I
It was-
try not to let my buyers do that.
yeah,
Like, I try to tell them like, you know, think of it if you were the seller, not that I'm like, you know, trying to work for the seller, but at the same time too, I'm like, we're going in, we're gonna offer based on what we see.
Yeah.
Like, right, like if we see that there's a incorrect hookup or whatever, we're not gonna go back on inspection and say that, because we already saw that.
Yeah.
We're gonna offer
Yeah.
on what we see when
Yeah.
we walk through.
that's right.
Barring they come back and say the foundation's sinking,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
you know, if something comes back and it's major, okay, let's negotiate, but
Yeah.
you're not gonna like re-point out all the things that we already saw in the next for another 10 grand.
You don't wanna give them more reasons, for the deal not to go through.
Exactly.
Right? That's just,
For sure, yeah.
it makes everybody's lives harder.
Mm.
It's not fair.
And it's really messes up the expectations and for what us realtors wanna teach our, or work with our buyers on.
Yeah.
Cause you can't
Yeah.
go in and say, nobody's offering over when someone's offering $75,000 over just to get it, and then they end up
That's right. So
negotiating down to 5,000.
as the seller's agent, we're trying to like, it's either sellers on which offer to take, and it's like, are these
Yeah.
people like just offering this because they're gonna like, you know, renege on inspection? Like Scalar Ford one, oh, that was like that, so I put that Skytech right up front, everybody knew there was Skytech there, and we negotiated at the beginning offer. He said, because there's Skytech, this is the most they'll go. So I told that to my seller, I said, because there's Skytech, that's it, you're not, he said, we're not gonna come back, nothing. It did, sure enough, he came back.
How do you tell if it's Skytech?
I knew for sure because it was orange and it literally said Skytech right on it. If it's orange, it's
Okay.
definitely take a picture and send it to a plumber.
But I think the year from 94 to 04. The years.
The big
they were
years.
solved.
Are we talking about Skytech?
And Millwood is notorious. Oh, okay. Notorious.
Oh, no, it's all over the place.
Yeah, well, it is, yeah, exactly.
Thames Plains
Yeah.
is the other big one, White Hills Run.
And it's like, where did you say no?
Millwood, Millwood subdivision, South Meadow Harbor. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you for your patience. I'm saying I love it. I don't know how or why I looked myself. I don't recall. I had the last 2 years, but anyway, I did so.
Back. Did you have a good eye?
I did. My brain is,
Still soaking up the.
Still.
information?
yes, this year was different because they had 2 keynote speakers.
Ready now.
They had Tony Robbins, who spoke for an extra hour on top of his 4 hours or whatever he was there. And then we had Mel Robbins the next day. Similar messaging, completely different styles, obviously. So it's a lot, it's like, these are not people that, you know, even like Mel Robbins spoke for an hour. And honestly, I think she was just as impactful as Tony Robbins, who spoke for 5, right? And God love him, because I mean, he's a lot, but he had emergency shoulder surgery like 3 days before. And his doctors and stuff had told him to cancel, and he wouldn't. Probably because I don't want to know what they spent, but they also would have left, like, would have looked really bad, right? It would have been like such a gigantic gap in our day, right?
Yeah.
And so he had like the whole brace on, and he had like basically stopped taking his pain meds so that he wasn't like a face hit out. So the man was in agony, right? Like anyway, you'd never know it. And of course, he moves when he. That's a fellow hand. There's a fellow person who talks with their hands. So you could see him trying to like stop.
Stop removing his heart.
Well, like it was all braced, but like, you know, it has to, anyway. It was good, but it was just like. So anyway, so now I've got to kind of like process. I'm always a believer of, anytime you go to anything is to try and get, you know, at least a nugget out of each thing. And you get that kind of like that, it's often that one thing that just gives you that, whatever.
Yeah, your
aha moment. Yes, exactly. So, welcome. Who do I have? I have Cyril and Cole on the line. And then I have my regular gang in front of me. I love it. Okay, so today we are working with buyers and sellers. This is, now I will say I changed some of the slides, and for whatever reason, they didn't save. So there's a few slides in here that I do want to specifically chat about, because one of them is about dual agency. So let's just chat about that. Tell you what you think my thoughts are on that. So I had changed it all to be customer status, transaction. Anyway, I don't know. It didn't take. I don't know what to tell you. I changed it twice. So we'll move on. We'll move on. Okay, but really, a lot of what today is about is the concept of you've led up to now and now you have the client, right? You've won the buyer presentation, you've won the listing presentation, you're all that in a bag of chips, right? And expression of my mother's, I don't really know what it means, but you get the gist of when you're supposed to use it. That and the bee's knees, but anyway, moving on. And so this is really about sort of making sure that we're really clear on like our fiduciary obligations that go through it and how and when do we step in, do we step out, and how do we advocate properly? What are the systems that you're putting in now that you've done your spectacular buyer seller presentation, right? So before I start, I wanted to ask if, as you guys are sort of like, you're at the end of your journey here, are there items, because you've only got 2 more classes after this one, are there any items leading up to now, before I start, that you are looking for clarity on, that if you would like me to take a few minutes to chat about or go over anything else you've done previously that you want to chat about? If you don't know now, you can think about it. We can pop back if there is an opportunity. Just, you will have Melissa Wednesday, because these are the 4 broker sessions that we have planned. But again, if there is something that you want covered, to please let me know. And our online people, first of all, can you hear me? I'm yakking away here with the expectation that everybody can hear.
Sounds good.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much. Okay, so as you know, I'm gonna flip through Jess, right? One of the big things about this portion of the relationship is now demonstrating your value. You've talked, blah, 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 hire me. You've done a great job. Congratulations. You've convinced them that you are that in a bag of chips. But now we have to prove it. And so when we're looking through this type of section, it's really where, when you've been thinking about how you want to form your business, and when you've been thinking about what experience and or services do you want to offer to your buyers and sellers, to actually now look at how are you going to do that, right? Has anyone thought specifically about, okay, well, now I've got my listing presentation or my buyer presentation. Have you given any thought or accidentally done it for the last 10 years, as Laura might be in the position to say, that, you know, my objective is that a client will, that this will be what we achieve, or these are my boundaries, or these are my rules, for lack of a better word, in terms of the experience for a buyer or seller. Does anybody, do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
What you'll allow you to get away with, or like how far you'll go, or like what?
Could be all the things. Well, so I'll give you an example. I have a rule. And it's a rule. I used to say it was a, what did I used to say it was? Recommendation or something anyway, and he's now in our buyer and seller presentations that we're done. But, you know, for example, with a seller, that we need to be 100% confident that you have your pre-approval and that you are actually ready to go before you put your house for sale, because I can't undo it. Right? So, oh yeah, I'm pre-approved. Great. Okay, she's just had a baby. She's on mat leave. She get pre-approved before or after mat leave?
Oh, yeah, right.
Right? Because you can't get a seller out of a deal. That 4 a week comes in, they're moving. Right?
Yeah.
So for us, one of our rules as fiduciaries for our sellers is to have that conversation. Right? They're grown-ups,
Yeah.
but I typically want to talk to the mortgage person before we start writing on other properties, and I need to make sure the numbers work. So that's a fiduciary responsibility, but it's also like a part of how I want to run my business. That, first of all, I don't want to waste my time, but second of all, the last thing I would really like to do is be, you know, in the news because I've sold this young family out of their house and now, you know, they have nowhere to go, right? Because everybody thinks that they've got all their shit together, pardon my language, but they don't necessarily. So, for example, I have a no flak jacket rule. Everybody know what a flak jacket is? Bulletproof vest. So I won't take you somewhere where I think we're gonna need one. If you wanna go there, you get another agent. That's my rule. That's my personal rule.
If you're not comfortable going into that
Then
neighborhood, then why?
why am I taking you there? Right? So we can have a conversation about it. Maybe that's where you want to be, but I'm not just gonna go, oh, great. Hey, oh, cute little house. Like, there are certain areas that, depending on the human, are not the right fit, right? There's the right fit for everyone, right? So, for example, those are, when we're talking about your fiduciary role, your responsibilities, your ethical role, and how do you want your business to be created? How do you intend to implement? For example, part of my conversation is that I'm a terrible yes man. I'm not a very good yes man.
You're not a good yes man, or you are a good?
I am not. No. I'm not just gonna go, oh, yes, oh, yes, oh, yes, and not tell you what I think. I know you're very surprised by this enlightening statement. And also, you're a grown up, but you didn't hire me to be your best friend, is part of what I say. You hired me to look after you, and that means I need to tell you. Right? But when you tell people I'm honest, they go, "Bleh." Like, of course they expect you to be. You're not demonstrating that. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
So when we're looking at these pieces here, oh, look, I made the slides work. There's a couple that are useful. Lost Cole already. I don't think that bodes well for me. Yeah, blah. So this is. Girl, I'm just gonna move this little box. Like, what in God's name was that? This is the entire world of Mac. I like this one. Let that polish. Okay, so this is an example of what they're talking about when we're saying, what are some of the characteristics that you want to be thinking about? So providing a strong foundation for sustaining relationships. So to me, that's a big wordy sentence that you could go, what the heck does that mean? To me, that's about defining what is your foundation? What is the base of what you want your business to be? When you did your listing presentation or your buyer presentation, and you talked about, these are the things I'm going to do, and why are you doing them? Why did you say you're going to do them? What is the point?
Transaction state.
Right. Yes, that is technically correct. It's a little performative in what I'm hearing, like it just in the sense that it's very step-based, but in the sense of your why. Why does this matter to you when you're working with your clients? Why is this process or this step that you've created so important in getting them from A to B? Why is A to B? Why do we go from A to D? What do these steps do? Is it information? Is it preparation? Is it education? Like why are you committed to doing it this way? The reason that I ask you that is because if you don't own it and it's just steps, you don't do it the same way. You're not as committed to it, and it's easier to start wobbling, right? You guys did SMART goals, I'm assuming at some point here. SMART goals. Okay, give me 2 seconds, I'm doing this. So Cyril, I'm gonna write SMART, because I don't know if you can see that, what's happening with the camera. I'm gonna write SMART down the page. We're not gonna do the Simpsons SMRT yet, okay, so. So, the reason I mention this is because this is a way to look at how you wanna how you wanna deal with expectations, how you wanna do peace of mind, like, how are you gonna do that? What are your goals and objectives in working with a buyer and working with a seller? So a SMART goal, has anyone ever done this before? Yes. Okay, I have two that are yeses, so you shush over there. What would you think that an S would stand for with respect to a goal? Sassy, I love it. The S is for specific. And so if we think about, what is my buyer representation going to be? What is my seller representation going to be? What are you specifically going to do for these humans? What is your process? What are you doing it? And why are you doing it? M. Any thoughts on an M? I'm actually warm. I'm never warm. Yes. The M is for measurable. When we're talking about a goal, that would be, for example, saying, I think I'm gonna lose some weight. That is not specific, because technically if I lose an ounce, I lost some weight. Like how much, by when? Like you can't check it off that you've done it if you can't measure it. Anyone here take bold? So one of the things I talk about is what is measured can be fixed, like you can't improve, but you can't measure. A. It's accountability / attainable. There's two, I use both. Because they both have relevance to it. You have to be prepared to be accountable or don't bother, right? But it also has to be attainable in that same concept. R. These are all excellent. Not what I'm looking for, but they are excellent suggestions. It's realistic. So if you said, for example, I'm going to sell 500 homes this year, you have 0 people in your database, that may not be realistic. Right? Yeah, right. But it could also be, for example, things in your life. You know, you've got kids at home or family commitments or other things. So like how many hours, like, is this even possible? Do you even have everybody else on board? Right? Because, you know, no one survives or succeeds alone. And T, this is this one here that's really connected to what we're talking about here. Anybody have an idea what T would be? That's one. That's not the one I'm actually going to use. Interesting.
Time
Is-
bound,
Sorry?
time bound.
Bound. Time bound. Okay, sorry, I did not hear that properly.
Oh, sorry.
I was like, I have other ideas that are coming to mind, but I don't know what they are, so we'll shush. The one I'm gonna put here is truthful. So, anybody here ever make a big change, i.e., I don't know, stop smoking? I did it. Everybody, I'm a grown-ass woman. I knew, I stopped a long time ago, but I knew for 20 years, I knew it was good for me. I did not fall off under a rock. I knew that. And as I was standing outside shivering like an idiot, didn't matter. No one, I couldn't stop until I wanted to, until I made the decision. Right? So truthful is that your goals cannot be what someone else wants to hear. You have to own it or you're not going to do it. Period. Full stop. Forget the rest. If it's not yours and you're not prepared to commit to the breakdown of it, then you're not going to do it. Nobody else here is going to show up in your living room at 8 o'clock in the morning and help you start organizing your day. Well, maybe they are, but I don't think so, right? They're not going to sit beside you and hold your hand and make sure you do your thing or make your calls or no. Have you ever found that the things you want the most that you succeed in are the things that you can, like you're driven to do? Feel it, right? Now, this might seem like a weird connection when I'm talking about buyer and seller relationships, but if you have a commitment or a goal as to how you're gonna work with your fiduciaries, then you will do it all the time. You will do it consistently. And you will create value for those consumers.
Are you talking about setting goals for yourself to achieve regarding what you want to achieve for your clients? Or these are goals? that you
Kind of,
want
yeah.
to-
Yeah, because you're gonna have your goals, like, I wanna do X amount of units and blah, 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 and, you know, this much money and blah, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is, and I appreciate the reset on how I'm explaining. Well, I'll have to leave then. Is, one of the things that happens is you say, I'm gonna run this, when I work with sellers, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make sure that every single time we do X, Y, or Z. Because I believe that that's going to help you, Mr. Seller, accomplish your goals. Right? But then what happens is, now Laura's your friend who decides to hire you, she's your friend. So you start to just sort of, let's go, and you start not doing the system,
Got it, yeah.
right? Or it's, you know, if they don't, if I use my system and I stop and make them do a buyer consult or a seller consult, they're not gonna hire me, they're gonna hire someone else, because I'm not going fast enough. Do you understand what I'm saying? I can tell you that every single time you squirrel away from whatever your belief is and your systems are as to what you want your buyers and sellers experience and process to do, those are gonna be the deals that you go, oh, for God's sake, they're done. It's like not worth it. Because you break off. The only way you're gonna stick to them is if you have like a specific goal or a measurable way as to why you're doing it the way you're doing it. And it's gonna change, it's gonna evolve as your business grows and as different technologies happen. But what are your fundamentals that are your fiduciary beliefs to your clients? And I'm not talking about regurgitating the BDBA or the SDBA, blah, 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 blah. What does it mean to you? Because I will tell you, when you own it that way, it becomes a passion because it's yours. And when you have that and you're conveying that to the client after they've agreed to hire you, in your actions, they are loyal. Because they can see that you, A, know what you're doing, and B, that you're passionate about it. And it will help you stay on track. I know as a giant squirrel, I realize it seems impossible that that's what I do, but we, you know, every buyer and seller, we have the same machine. We run it the same exact way. We have to adapt and make certain things more of a priority and then less for different people, but the machine doesn't change. As you create volume, which is also your goal, if you do not stick with your systems that you built, you will very, very quickly feel overwhelmed. You will also very quickly start to make mistakes because you won't remember what you did for each person if it's not the same every time. Now, we now have this magical system command that we didn't have a long time ago. And, you know, we've all worked with different databases. For those of us who've been around for a while, we've tried everything but this is the only one that allows us to have more than one thing in it. We used to have the database, and we had Slack to have a conversation on a team, and we had this over here to track sales. And, you know, it was all different. It wasn't all within the one thing. So now you have tools, you can even advertise out the darn thing. Like you can do all kind of everything, which in theory makes your life easier if you use it. But if we go through here, when it's talking about creating peace of mind, enhancing your credibility, don't you feel your experience? Why is Siri talking to it? Whenever you go to do anything, service your car or go to the spa or whatever, there's a process that you go through. that makes you feel more comfortable and like you can trust the experience. Is that fair? So why would we not have that when someone's buying or selling the most expensive thing they've ever done in their life? Why does the spa have a process to make sure I have a lovely, relaxing experience for $69 at Sensi versus 500,000 that they're spending with you? They want that. So to me, that's part of our fiduciary responsibility, right? So on one of the notes that I have when it talks about, oh, right. Oops. So this is what I'm talking about here: purpose, value proposition, and fiduciary. So your purpose is that, why should they hire you? What are the services you're going to provide? What are your systems? When we're looking at value proposition, it's talking about you as a specific individual and kind of putting the purpose and piece together in the sense of, you know, this is my belief. It was interesting, talking about the conference, Tony Robbins had some poor random guy in the audience stand up and say ask him why he should hire him. And he gave him this absolute elevator speech. And he basically was like, bullshit. This is bullshit. That's basically what he said. And because he said, that's regurgitated. Talk to me like I'm your brother. Talk to me like I'm family. What are you going to do for me? And his answer was totally different because it was truthful. It was how he really felt about what he wanted to do and what experience he wanted them to have and how he wanted to look after them, and his passion showed because he was being truthful.
Doesn't that change with each client though too? Because you can have an elevator pitch that works for one client, but not another.
I think
You know-
you're past elevator pitches at this point.
Yeah.
That's my point, right? Is that
Right.
an elevator pitch is great, but if you don't have the actual ownership of the steps behind it, then it's BS. So we know what our fiduciary duties are, right? But how do you want to execute them? And what are your personal boundaries around what that's going to be that you want to communicate to the clients?
Can you give us a couple more examples of what your boundaries are, or what boundaries could be besides
Yeah, it could be-
certain neighborhoods? What else?
It could be as simple as, this is kind of a weird one because technically we have the ability, for example, to sell anywhere in the province. Legally, you have the ability. From an E&O perspective, it makes me incredibly unhappy when people go to areas that they don't know anything about, but that's legally, I can't stop you, right? Would I like to? Anywho, so I don't have an issue if, we have an agent on our team who does stuff in New Glasgow. I have two of them. They're from there. They're from there. So that's not the same thing as I need directions to get to the place because I've never been here before. And I don't know if the house next door is the local drug lab that everybody else in town knows about, and I have no idea. So personally, I have a boundary that when I start to get to a geography that I do not know anything, that I refer it, that it is not worth the commission personally to A, get sued, and B, I would be breaching my own fiduciary duties that I have set as a boundary with respect to the knowledge and experience I expect to deliver to a client. That's a personal choice, right? So that for us, that means when we start, someone's like, trying to think, you would like to go to Yarmouth. Okay, I picked up my dog in Yarmouth. I know how to get to the subway in Yarmouth. That's what I know about Yarmouth. I'm not selling in Yarmouth, right? I don't ever want to be personally, and this goes back to my value proposition and my fiduciary decisions. that my clients buy a house and they're in the local grocery store and they go, "Oh, it's the one that bought that house where the murders and the drug and what? Because I didn't know. You imagine it happens, right? So, but that's a choice that I've made in terms of my boundaries that I've set with my clients. And I let them know that if we're going to stretch the areas of what I am competent in, that I will find them a partner who is whom I would hire in that area if I was buying property. Never ever had a client be unhappy with that. They actually respect the fact that you're prepared to step away from the transaction because it's in their best interest. So that if they do start to flit around and now they want to go look down there, as we used to, of course, during COVID, when everybody was coming to build a hobby farm, that was for Ontario. You missed all that excitement, James. I gotta tell you, these people have never seen a chicken. Now they all want 50 of them, but moving on. I swear to God, every second call you had was that they wanted to be near the ocean with high-speed internet and 2 acres, but close to Costco. And I have $300,000 to spend because I don't want a mortgage. Every single one of us has had at least 10 of those Zoom calls. So anywho, yeah, well, when you find it, let me know because I'll buy it first. Anyway, but so to me, that's part of the definition of how how I've built my business. So when I'm conveying my value proposition to a client, I'm then conveying that you're more important than my commission.
Right. Yeah.
Because I value the sanctity and the security of your investment over my commission. And I believe that you get what you give, so that if you do go shopping in Yarmouth, then you go, oh God, I'm now in Yarmouth. I'm sorry if I have anyone on the phone who's from Yarmouth, but I like to visit. I've gone to visit, but I don't want to live there personally, right? And that when they come back, they're going to come right back to me. I'm not going to have any issues. Does this provide some clarity? So that's why when we're looking at this is how do you want to define your service? How do you want to define your client experience? We can all read a BDBA to someone. We can all get in the car and take someone to go look at properties. What are you doing and how are you doing it that is going to create that lasting relationship? So I'll give you an example. I am very aware of my one gigantic failing as a realtor. 100% know what it is. Name it 1 second for you. I know exactly what it is. It's that my client follow-up after sale sucks. Fully own it. And it's because I haven't fully built the machine on me. I know this. And, I may have a few other things in my agenda that, throw me off from time to time, but I know this. For some goddamn reason, people call me back after 12 years. I haven't even talked to them. They're like, can you please sell my house again? Absolutely, I can. I remember them. I always remember. But I've done something.
Yeah.
We've done something.
Yeah.
In our experience, in our roles, in the boundaries, in the experience that they call us. Because they didn't call me back because I sent them a postcard. I can assure you of that. Should I? Yes, please no, please do not do what I'm doing. Please don't do this. I know this is not right. It's my number one thing in my life for my business that I'm working on. But what I'm saying is that the experience and the rules and the boundaries and our fiduciary experience with our clients is so strong that they come back. That's what I want for you. And what will change you from other competitors in your industry is going to be the ability to clearly define what that is. And again, remember, it's going to change and it's going to evolve, and you do not need to get ready to go. Then it doesn't have to be perfect. And you may not even know it until you start to do more. That you realize and you are thinking about, oh, you know what? I realize I'm asking everybody this question. Okay, well, that must be important. It might take you a long time to completely build it. That's okay. But what I'm asking you to do is to be cognizant of it. Instead of just falling from deal to deal and wondering how the hell that happened, if you're sitting with a mortgage partner and you're trying to build that relationship and you can't really explain these items and you're coming out with kind of like regurgitated realtor garbage, why are they going to pick you versus anyone else with a pulse and a license to do business with? They have to believe that you're aligned, that whatever your value proposition to clients is consistent with their value proposition to their clients. So what is it? What are you committed to? Maybe it's different for buyers or sellers. That's okay. Maybe it's different for out of town clients versus locals. I don't know. What are your, how do you want, what is your purpose? What is the value and the experience you want to deliver? And how are those going to connect back to your fiduciary duties? When you own that, it is a game changer, guys. Because you're more than just a person processing a deal. Right? So that's where they talk about here, functionary versus fiduciary. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Is someone just like an automaton falling through the process of showing houses and writing offers? Or is every action they're taking, can it be tied back to their fiduciary responsibilities? You know, the people who've had the functionary experience, you've heard about them. You've seen them. You've done business with agents who function like that, where honestly, it doesn't even seem like they give a shit. Or it's very transactional. I don't think any of you are transactional agents. Do you know the difference between transactional and relationship based? Yes. Okay. I don't think any of you are transactional. I think all of you are very upset when something doesn't go great for a client. I think you own it. I think you don't sleep that night. I think you worry because you care and you really want them to buy a good product. You really want them to have a positive experience. You really want to remove as much stress as possible from that. So how are you going to do that? I can give you an example of functionary versus fiduciary from a practical perspective. And actually looking at Suzanne reminded me of a conversation I had with someone she knows years ago. And this person was really, really frustrated with the industry member on the other side. Like, because that never happens. Did you know the number one complaint in our industry is each other? Literally. NAR and Korea. It's shocking. Anyway, moving on. Scroll, please don't be those people. Anyway, so this other agent they weren't calling back on time. They were sloppy with their paperwork. They just were ghosting this. The whole thing was just. Our agent was communicating with their client every single time they'd left a message and the other person didn't call them back and blah, 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 and etc. So what was happening is that the consumer was becoming angry with the other agent. So what can happen then is that this other agent brings forward, let's say, an amendment on a completely reasonable, rational thing. But now this client thinks this person is just being terrible and unreasonable and unprofessional because we've kind of overshared. So the conversation became, but isn't it my fiduciary duty to keep my client fully informed? Yes. However, there's fully informed and then there's ridiculous, right? If you've left 3 messages and it's been 2.5 hours, you don't need to report that in. That's 2.5 hours. If there's a legitimate problem, if you hadn't heard back and you've called me and I've tried to call the other side, the other broker to poke at them, and okay, now we're talking to the client about that. You would have told them I left a message. As soon as I hear back, I'll let you know. But what can happen is now we've actually freaked out the other buyer. In this case, our agent worked for the seller. So these sellers are having a very stressful experience right now, right? Because the initials weren't coming, like the whole thing was messy, and the other person's communication style was not great. And so now the clients were very worked up And at no point was there the thought of saying, is this normal for this person? Is there something else going on? Like, maybe we should, like, how do we resolve this? And the conversation also came down to these people are giving 5% of their home's equity to these professionals to make this a seamless experience. Is that what's happening right now? No. Under no circumstances are you ever allowed to know something that your client's not allowed to know. Please be very clear. I'm not trying to suggest you don't share with your client. But sometimes part of the experience is that we're the buffer, we're the guard to protect them. And filter the, get the information, put it into context and explain it and deliver it, right? It's the same idea why, if you do this, that's your choice. I personally do not think it's a good idea, which is the auto populate from showing time to your listings for feedback. I just do not think that is a good. In showing time, you can have feedback automatically sent to clients. Most agents don't write their feedback assuming it's being verbatim provided, right? And so if I had 4 people who said the house smells, the way they wrote that is probably not the way I want my client to read it. So I'm going to then say, this is the feedback. This is obviously, we need to do something about this. I'm going to take the information. I'm going to provide value, I'm going to give a suggestion and a solution as to the thing. I don't need them to receive unfiltered commentary from the industry when they have no idea that it's going directly to the agent, to the client, because they would write it differently if they did, right? But they don't, because we don't. So as an example, how am I, and what's the context? Who's this other agent? What are the circumstances? Maybe I need to call the agent back and ask questions about, I don't understand what you're talking about. What is this feedback? And they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. You're like, oh, okay, perfect. Now I can go back and explain that to the client. That's my fiduciary role. If we don't provide any value in experience, and context, then what are we good for? What is your value to your buyers? So for example, personally, I don't set anyone up. I have all my buyers are on Collab, but I don't have any of them on auto direct. I have all of them on agent preview. Do you understand the difference?
Yes, but why?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah.
So I will try not to dig myself into a hole here, but I can't promise that that's
a lot of work.
that. So I'm going to challenge,
Yeah.
because with all due respect to everyone who has people on auto drip, there's not a single listing our clients can't see as soon as we see them.
That's true, yeah.
It's when they get the automatic updates,
Yeah, like you've said, 2 bedrooms, 3 bath, and it'll send.
all of it to them.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
right? And that's great. Lots of people do it.
Maybe upgrade it.
No, but so for me, I don't do it because I want to be able to say to my clients, as part of my value, I'm going to filter what I send you because you're looking for my guidance and my experience. And if I look at this and you've said I only have X amount of budget and this needs roof and windows and whatever, it's still sent to them. What's the value of that? That's my opinion. Do what you want. Right? So that's part of my process. That's part of my value. That's part of one way that I can deliver my fiduciary obligation of advice and guidance is by actually advising. So I'll have clients who will say, well, they'll send me one going, oh my God, did you see 123 Smith Street? And I go, yep, came up in your collab. I didn't send it to you because blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh, perfect. Thank you. We're done.
Do you ever find the opposite happens though? They say, how come you didn't send this to me? This is perfect because I've now changed the mind after, and you haven't caught up with
Very rarely.
very rarely.
Because what you'll find in my experience is when you're doing agent preview, your communication is more targeted. Because the conversation is that I'm saying, if I've sent it to you, I think it's worth talking about. And I'll say, there'll be some that I'll have decided that don't work and you text it to me and we'll talk about it. Right? So like it's collaborative, but they can't actually collab into the collab anyway, but they, if you see something, let me know, we'll talk about it. And a lot of times sometimes what will happen is they'll send me one and I'll go, I saw it come through. I haven't been logged into my system yet. Let me check it. And I'll go, yeah, that's one I would send you. Like that happens, right? But 99% of the time, you're screening. Like you've got clients who are like, I don't know. they're as handy as, you know, me, right? And they're like, and so then everything that's coming up in their price point is a gigantic fixer upper that needs a whole pile of money. Why are you sending that to them? Why is that value? That's just my opinion, right? But, and you may have other clients who go, no, I just want to see everything. Okay, fine, put them on the auto drip, right? But personally, I don't do that because I've decided personally that my part of my value proposition is that I'm filtering the properties. Everyone can see the properties. Finding the properties, not why they hire you. That's not your job. Your job is not to find a property. You do know this is not your actual job. Smile and nod at me, please. Yeah. That's only a 1/100th of the things you do. Who finds the thing is irrelevant. It's your experience and knowledge in, is this a good thing or not that they're hiring you for? Because otherwise they can just go on any website, none can be named in this room other than realtor.ca, and go and call the listing agent. Why are they talking to you? They're talking to you because they want your advice on why they should or shouldn't look at this property, or why you need to, you know, be like the IKEA ad and get in the car, right? You know what I'm talking about? It's an IKEA ad. I don't know when the woman comes out, her husband's waiting at the front in the car. She's like, she got such a good deal. She thinks she's stealing from IKEA.
Yeah.
She's like this, like 50-ish kind of, you know, very middle-agey woman, like husband's like in a station wagon, like it's funny. Moving on. Anyway, so what, to me, that's my role as a fiduciary, not a functionary. To me, a functionary is just going to pass the shit because it's easier. That's my opinion.
What about on the seller side? If you have, like, setting up a seller lead so that they can see properties that are similar to theirs that in the future will become comparable. It's like
I don't
watching
do that.
the market with
I
you.
don't do that. No, that's not how I do it. But if I want to use an example of a functionary versus fiduciary from a seller's perspective,
Yeah.
I guarantee you've all shown properties where they took the toilet seats up, there's fucking dishes in the sink, there's laundry. They took the pictures with their iPhone, the realtor's in the bathroom photo, like it's a dating selfie. You've seen this, right?
Yeah.
And it's dirty or it smells. Those agents, with every respect to whatever they're choosing to do, that's functionary to me. They have not provided fiduciary advice to that seller on how to get fastest, best sale. They're getting a sale on a functionary perspective. Do you see the difference?
I do.
Right?
I'm just thinking in hindsight of some different sellers, whether I've had them or I've gone to see and I know the story. Some of them, their idea of clean and tidy, for example, is not.
So are you prepared to have are you prepared to have difficult conversations? Because I'm not a very good yes man. If something smells, I will tell you.
And if they still don't bring it,
Then I am not the right fit for you.
so you'll turn down listings based on.
We're not on the same page. I can't accomplish. Here's the challenge. In a lot of those cases, those people also want top dollar.
Yeah, of course.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't get it for you. So I'm going to tell you that the only way I can get you X or Y is if we have a plan that works for everybody.
And how far do you go with that plan?
How far?
Uh,
I will tell you if
Have
your
you
house
gone into
smells.
clean houses
No,
to help people?
No.
I didn't expect you.
now I lied. There have been, I had this one senior citizen man who really couldn't get around and my team came in and we all spent an afternoon scrubbing. We have in a couple of like situations like that.
Certain circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm not your maid. Sorry, that's not,
Yeah.
but it's a conversation about what can I deliver? I know I can't get you X price or X days on market if this is not dealt with. Or someone doesn't have cash and something is absolutely 100% going to bite them in the rear end on inspection. You know it. you know it. Did you tell them? Did you plan for it? Have you pre-accounted in your net sales with the client that this thing they're gonna have to pay for now or later? You don't have the money now, no problem. We can have a plan, but you're going to have to fix this thing or they're not gonna get a mortgage. That's fiduciary, not functionary. You'll have done listings or gone on list or gone with buyers and dealt with listing agents where you'll write an offer and the agent will say, well, I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna work. I don't know how much I don't know what, if they're gonna have enough to sell with that. Like, I don't know where their numbers are. What do you mean you don't know what their numbers are?
Well,
Why are you on the market? And why are you on the market at that price if you don't think there's enough money to actually sell it and close it at that price? Right? So there's a difference between doing the base things we have to do a deal. Yes, you have to take pictures. You have to put it on MLS, but you should take pictures. Yes, you need to, in most cases, put up a sign. Okay, those are functionary items. The fiduciary agent is the one who says, we might need to clean the dog poop up out of the backyard. People are gonna walk here. Your house smells like pot. You need to air it out. Because people are gonna complain about it. How are you serving your client if you don't tell them the truth? And yes, there's nice ways to do it. I'm not, depending on the client. I had one client this summer. That was so funny. He's a little like this, like makes me look like I'm on Valium. Anyway, and his wife, we were prepping the house for going to market, and we're wandering around. He's like, do I need to fix this? That we're wandering around the house. We come outside, and he's like, what about this thing? I'm like, what thing? What am I looking at? And it's like the dirt is like, and I'm like, what? He's like, oh, we need to do that. I'm like, no, you do not. You need to do that.
Yeah.
I do not care about this. I care about this. And he's like, yeah, but, and I said, you are going to start. I want you to, I've known him for a long time, 12 years. And his wife goes, I need to come over all the time. You can get him to do, but I mean, no, don't dig a hole. I don't care about that. There's a hole in the ceiling. That, please. I don't care about the slope of the dirt by the driveway. No.
Yeah.
Right. But if I'm functionary, then I would be like, yeah, I'll be here tomorrow for pictures. Right. There's a difference. And you already know the difference. You just haven't made the connection.
That's why it's good to hear the examples.
Like if you think about, this is going to sound really terrible, but you think about every deal you've ever done or complaints you've heard from clients or you've heard in the industry when you're newer. Oh my God, oh my God, this agent did this, or this agent did that, or this agent didn't do this, or you went to show a property and went, what the is like, what is this? You're like, oh, great, terrible pictures. No one else will come. I might be able to buy it. Right. Those are the things you don't want to be. So what do you want to be? So if you're thinking from a fiduciary way, there's ways to be fiduciary that aren't so dry like you picture in the, the BDBA. You know what I mean, in that respect, right? So how do you practically be a fiduciary for your buyers and sellers? What do you think also happens if this fiduciary approach is what you take to your clients? Bingo. Number one thing, trust. So when you have to actually have difficult conversations about offers or budgets or, what we're going to die on a hill on during negotiation, etc., they now trust you because every action you've taken has demonstrated that it's in their best interest. Do you see any, for example, of the top agents in this province with the best reputations and the highest production? Do you think any of them take pictures with their iPhone? Any of them? I mean, we used to take our own pictures. I never did use my phone because by the time we had switched to that stage, phones could actually take pictures than used to. So, I mean, we had a really good camera. There weren't photographers like there are now, but you know, we still did as close to professional as we could when we started. You know, it evolves. Now we've got Matterport, now we've got this, now we've got that, you know, operas and choirs and, you know, all the things to sell the listing, right? But that's moving with the industry, that's our decision as to what service levels we provide and, you know, what offerings we have for our clients, our choice, right? You get to make your own choice. But are your choices functionary or fiduciary? I want you to understand the difference. Do you now understand the difference?
Be functionary.
When you're relationship based, it's easy, but the difference is also, and it goes back to my, you know, my pithy statement about being not a good yes man. Part of providing value and creating trust is also telling clients what they should not do. I think I told you guys my funny story about my little Newfoundland couple and where do I want to live, right? That's fiduciary. I super quick, because they've already heard it, which is I had clients a million years ago where you could buy a semi-detached for 135,000.
It's a million years ago.
A million years ago. I had clients who had moved from Newfoundland and I swear to God, it was their very first time off the rock. Most adorable little clients ever. And of course, they originally were looking at mini homes. I was able to show them that buying a semi-detached would cost them the same per month, but they would have stronger value because many homes didn't used to appreciate the way they do now. So, and so we went, we were looking at ones and we were looking in the Passage at the time because that was the most affordable, safe spot for my little young family. And half of Newfoundland lives in Eastern Passage, so it's perfect. And Laura lives there. I've lived there before, so she knows I'm right. Anyway, and so they had sent me this property. They called me to say, oh, I found 2 semis for the same price. And I said, oh, and I said, where is it? And they told me the street and I said, oh, no. Said, no, you can't buy there. And they said, well, we really want to see it. I said, okay, you drive by. You want to drive by? Call me. If you want to see it, I'll get you another realtor. And they said, all right. They drove by, they called me back, said, Ann, where would you like us to live? Because where they wanted to go was not okay. Was not okay. There's a reason it was 2 for 1. There are no deals in real estate, right? So that was my choice to stick to my fiduciary guns, for lack of a better word. Could it have cost me a client? Yes. Would I have slept okay? Yep. Because I can't, you know, I'm not going to do it. But I want you to understand the difference, because how you move forward with the contractual elements of your deals, all start with that. How you deal with the negotiation, how you deal with all the jazz comes from making that decision about what are the things, what are the specifics, what are the measurable things you want to do with a client? What are the things you need to tell them, good, bad, or ugly, that are truthful? That's the difference, right?
I struggle with being the yes person. I struggle with and this is just me being truthfully transparent.
Mhm.
I struggle with the piece of being worried that they're gonna fire me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
100%.
you're juggling because you want them to not fire you, but you want to help them as well. And you're afraid, I'll just say it, afraid to have the hard conversations sometimes because you're worried. And I know I shouldn't say that because that's not the right thing.
No,
to
but it's
say.
truth. And I would say 95% of agents aren't prepared to do it.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you that it's not, and you're not going to do it overnight.
No.
And I'm not suggesting that, you know, you're going to stand there and have a temper tantrum, put your hands in your face and, you know,
No.
no.
Yeah.
But there's ways to have conversations. There's actually a KW course called Having Fierce Conversations online, if anybody is interested in that. I'm 2-3 times a month for 3 months. I can't. Anyway, I've taken the course in the past at conference, but it's about learning to communicate. And when we go back to personality styles that I was yakking at you guys about last time I was here, how you approach that conversation is going to depend on the personality style of the human that you're talking to. If you're talking to a high C, who's the detailed, you know, what's the tax bill and where's the property line and, yada, 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 and, how long have the neighbors lived there and, that person, then you're probably gonna come to them from something very factual. So I will show you this property. However, I need to make sure we discuss X first, because you've told me that you didn't want this thing and this house has this thing.
Right.
Right? So I'll show you, but I need to say, I'm not sure why we're looking at it, because you've told me very specifically that you did not want this thing, whatever this thing is. Right? And they might go, oh, right, because they got distracted by the shiny countertop. Right? And they might go, no, you know what? You're right. I'd like to see it anyway. Okay. I can guarantee you when you walk out, they'll go, all right, so you were right. That's having a difficult conversation right there. That's it, done. People will send, like I've had clients where we talk about their pre-approval of buyers in particular, their, if this is my max budget, I don't have a single cent more. I've confirmed with the mortgage broker, this is their number. And suddenly they're sending me listings that are like, and I'll say, did we get more money? Do we have more money? Please tell me we have more money. Did you win the lottery last night and I didn't see the news? No, well, I'm not that good. I can't get that from there to where you need it to be. I can't. There's no way.
But what happens if it does sell and it does sell at their price?
I'm talking like, you'll know, like they're approved at 450, they send you something for 525 and it's been on the market for 3 days and it's worth 525. You're not, I don't care how good you are, you're not negotiating that down to 450. Right?
It's a fear too. I think we've talked about this. But what if,
What if you step in front of a bus tomorrow?
Yeah.
What if? You
Yeah.
can't live your life like that.
Mhm.
Right? You know your stuff. And if you don't know your stuff, you're going to check with someone who does know their stuff about the thing that you're not sure about. Right? But you can say, look, I can take it there, but I need to be very clear. If we offer, they're going to tell us to go jump in the harbor. And you're not going to get what you want. I will do, it's your lawful instruction. I will do it. That's your choice. Say, I'll do it. You'll write the offer. They will get rejected. They'll see what it's sold for and they'll go, okay. I mean, I've used the script. I'd love to say I control the market. God knows I have control issues. Let's be honest. That's fine. But I know I can't control the market. I'd love to say I do, but I don't. I'm not that important. I don't control the laws of supply and demand. I'm not getting you a house on the peninsula on the arm for $500,000. It doesn't matter how good I am. I can be the best negotiator in the entire world. It's not happening. It's the same conversation on the seller side. My neighbor's house sold for X and I want that. Great. They have a new metal roof and a brand new custom kitchen. And our kitchen's from 1985 and your roof shingles are falling off. I can't do it. Why are you setting yourselves up to fail? Or do you think you can actually get them that number? No. I'm not spending money advertising, promoting, staging, photography, videos, blah, 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 signing, when I can't do it. And I've said that to people in listing presentations. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but I don't think I am. My experience tells me I'm not. And if I said yes to you, then clearly I don't value my own knowledge and my own experience, that I'm promising you something I can't give you. And what kind of business person am I if I can't even negotiate myself that I'm going to throw money down the toilet advertising your house at a price that's not going to happen? And I'll say, with all due respect to my industry, someone's going to come in here and tell you they can get it. 100% they are. I'm telling you, you can't. And I think if someone tells you you can, you need to have a very hard look at how they think they're going to do that. But that's my choice as to how I run my business. That's my fiduciary element. I'm not sticking my sign on a house with an intention that I'm going to get 5 price reductions till I get them where I want. That's not my personal choice.
Are you willing to do 1 or 2?
Yeah, that's not my strategy. There are people who go in with a strategy of I'll list at what the seller wants because I'll eventually get them down to where they're supposed to be. Meanwhile, my client has cleaned up for 5,000 showings. The feedback is that it's too expensive. They're exhausted, their kids can't play, blah, blah, blah. How have I met my fiduciary duties there exactly? I don't know. But that's my choice as to how I run my business. You need to decide is my point.
Yeah.
And, right? And sometimes it means having difficult conversations. But at the same time, if you tell someone the truth, like the honest to God truth, that is not possible, and they still don't believe you, well, guess what? They don't respect you. Is that actually who you want to work with?
That's where I have to get over that. Okay?
Next,
Yeah.
next. My team hates that word. Next. Because next. They're not hiring you as a human. They want to hear something and you didn't tell them. And so they're going to go find the person that can tell them what they want to hear. And how long does that goddamn listing sit on the market?
Yeah. I've literally had one client who went from bidding 100,000 over during the craziness to now thinking that they can bid 100,000 under. And no matter what I tell them, they're like, that's not what the market's doing, even though if I've shown them all these, and so I keep telling them, this is not what's happening.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, you're not working for me, you're working for them, you're trying to get them more money, and I'm like, no, that's not what I do. And then he's just like, I don't know where to go, like how to.
So in that particular circumstance, I would probably honestly suggest that you sit down with the client, have a meeting, and to say, we've now looked at X amount of houses in this market. And how many houses have you shown them?
Shudder to think,
Ballpark.
50 plus, 60 maybe.
I'm done. They're not a qualified buyer. Done.
They don't trust me.
They've- You're a tour guide. Congratulations. They're not-
I've done it.
No, done. I'm done. I would probably be saying that I don't think that this is working because what your expectations are of the market and my experience are not lining up. You need to decide if you want to continue working with them. This is actually a very important conversation because I've had the conversation with, when I do my buyer presentation, when we do the buyer designated, and we get to the section about, the non-defaulting party.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll say, everybody thinks it's that the buyer is going to fire the agent. It's not actually the case. It's whoever is not. We're not on the same page. I said, I've let buyers go. Right? Because they're trying to shop consistently over their pre-approval number. I can't I don't have time for this. Not only do I not have time for this, I'm not meeting my fiduciary duties because I have to be truthful and honest and I'm not that good. Right? It's the same conversation about, for me, overpriced listings personally comes down to, there's overpriced by like 10 grand and then there's
Yes.
overpriced, right? And I'm not putting my sign on that driveway. No frickin' way is my reputation getting attached to that pricing. I'm gonna look like an idiot.
I've done that too.
No, I'm the same. I'm the
We all
same.
looked all other way.
I'm not saying you don't from time to time have to take someone slightly over the number you want.
Yeah.
But if what the number they want is literally bananas, do you think you can do it? Why are you telling them you can't? Why are you telling them we're gonna try? Try what? Try to get 50 grand more for something with a house down the street just sold for 50 grand less and is nicer? I have an ICF foundation. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. You cannot charge more for an ICF foundation. Nobody cares. You cared when you built it. Congratulations. I can remember, I couldn't tell you what house, I couldn't tell you when. Going on a listening consultation with someone, they had built their own house, it was an older man. And his foundation walls were, 2 inches thicker than,
Right.
he was very, very specific in showing me this in the basement. And as a result, he's gonna be more desirable. No, sorry, no. you're not, right? But that's, I have to tell this person that. I can't say, oh, I have a pool, I spend 10 grand on it, I'm like, no, you're net zero on a pool. It might actually be the other way, right? So you have to set your expectations based on whatever your decision is. Are you going to get every single client? No. Are you going to have really great clients who refer you lots of other great clients? Yes. Then like same idea is once you start lowering your commission, every referral that comes from that one client is now that commission forever and ever, amen. Do you think they're not telling them? What's there? So make your decision. Next. Okay.
Wish I was like that, like I wish I could do it like that. Gotta practice.
But it is about practice. And it's sometimes it's just little tiny steps. The first time somebody says something to you and you go, no, that's not gonna work. Saying, can we talk about that? Do you mind if we talk about that one thing you just mentioned?
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, okay, perfect. And you go, I'm a little concerned about that. I'm not sure that that's gonna work. I'm having a difficult conversation. I'm challenging them. I don't have to be an asshole about it, right? But I need to say, well, you know, give you a perfect example. Sellers. And you're, doing your evaluation, how old are the windows, how blah, 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 what have you done, yada, yada. How old's your septic? Oh, it's original. House is 40 years old. But I've never had a problem with it. Right, you have beautiful green grass over there, but it's fine. It hasn't backed up into the house is the definition of I've not had a problem with my septic. I will budget every single client for a full septic replacement. Because the odds are 99% it's gonna fail or it's at the end of its life. If they don't need it, okay, they have more money. Never had anyone be mad at me about that. But you try and get a client now who's down to the last dollar because they're trying to buy X and you don't know what they're actually pre-approved for. On the other side, we don't know how much we need. Now we're trying to sell this and we need 25 grand. And they go, I don't have it. Well, it's not going to matter now or later. Now it's a defect. They're fixing that freaking septic. So why am I in the market if they can't afford to fix it? At least they have to be at least prepared to cover half of it at the very least. And even that's a stretch. That is my fiduciary responsibility to have that conversation.
Septic, like 25 plus years you have to worry about it, or is it under that?
20, 25 for sure.
Yeah.
I'm starting to be concerned.
25 years and then another, then probably 25,000 too.
It's on average, if you're in the city, it's 25. I really, really in life should have had my father teach me how to ride an excavator because it is the license to create money. We just all discuss this.
Wow.
My father, who could never personally have driven an excavator, not the point, but that and plexiglass, who knew? Anyway. Squirrel. That is my fiduciary responsibility is to protect their investment. So if we don't have enough money, what do we do? So they might say, well, should we get it inspected first? And I'd say,
Yeah.
not unless you got the money to definitely fix it, because once we know, we know.
Yeah.
But then you have to disclose.
Then we know, but you need to be prepared. The odds are 9 out of 10, the agent who's got a brain is gonna do a septic inspection. So we better be prepared. Right? So maybe that's a conversation between, negotiation on price in general gets offset by that, right? But you need to have the conversation. How many times have you heard or seen, you write an offer and they go, well, they don't have any money to do those things. Oh, okay. Like what? Like you're not selling this house ever unless this gets dealt with. A bank won't fund a house without a septic, and you can't do purchase plus improvements for septic for a buyer, for example, right?
Yeah, what?
Purchase plus improvements. type of mortgage,
Oh.
right? So when you want to put in a new kitchen, you can do purchase price plus improvements. They don't consider flushing the toilet to be an improvement. They consider it to be a base requirement. Funny that,
Yeah.
you know? Anyway, but my point being, how you set yourself up in terms of what role you're gonna play, asking questions. Any sales course you'll ever see in your entire life says that you should ask more questions than talk.
Listen yourself into a sale.
So if you're asking a bazillion questions and you're competing, do you think the other person asked the bazillion questions? Probably not. They probably came in and went, me, look at me, me. I'm so fabulous.
Can I just say, to put this image in my mind that you walk around listening to presentations with a little fiduciary bell every time.
What's his name from Wonderful Life?
Oh, Bailey?
Yes. George Bailey. Anyway,
Bell rings.
That's
But-
what-
but it's this, but if you think about it, right? It's, if you're asking the questions, then you are already demonstrating that you're not functionary.
Yeah.
Right away. I can remember years ago, an agent, who came to us from somewhere else. In compliance review, the PDS was, as a listing agent, was never prepared until after an offer was done. And I was told that that's how they were taught to do it in another province. Oh, okay. I said, so as a listing agent, how do you know what you need to disclose or not? How do you know when somebody asks you, has there ever been? And you don't know. What?
Yeah.
What? So that concept of asking questions, right? Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Oh, it's pee. Hey, I need to pee.
You go. No, it's all good. You go.
And can I ask you something specific about something on the other one?
Yes.
It's on topic of all of this.
Yep.
So I have these buyers out of province.
Mhm.
Met them at an open house back in December. And they're very, like, they don't communicate with me.
Right,
Like, they essentially ghosted me.
right.
And as time has gone on and it hasn't gotten any better, I'm like finding it really rude, to be honest.
Right.
That they're, I'm sending them updates and trying to set up calls.
Are they under contract?
They are,
Okay,
but they were the first people that I got under contract.
Right.
And I didn't realize that it should have been longer, so I only had 3 months.
Right.
And I'm coming to the end of that 3 months in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
But because they're not even like acknowledging receiving stuff from me.
Right.
I'm really like, I'm not enjoying working with them because of that.
next.
Yeah,
I would keep base communication with them,
yeah,
but I wouldn't be hunting them. They are
Yes.
in lead status to me, not in client status.
yeah. That's kind of what I'm getting, and it's wearing on me simply because if they're
Like, if you
not
want
ready
more
to be moving forward right now, I just want to know that.
Fucking tell me.
But getting nothing from them is driving me.
Right, and you don't want to send like a passive aggressive message that says,
I
well,
know.
since you've not.
I did that a couple weeks ago. Like, I couldn't handle it anymore, and I tried my best to not make it sound passive aggressive, but I still got no response from that.
Next.
And I'm just like I said, it's borderline, like, it's really rude to me.
But, and at the same time, there's several different things that can be happening. First of all, do these
Yeah.
people have to sell a house in Ontario to come here?
They do.
So the Ontario market is also shit
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah.
And so people are not getting what they think.
Mhm.
And so in some cases, we're seeing honestly people that are a little embarrassed
Okay.
because they came to you going, I'm gonna have this budget, I'm gonna
Yes.
sell my house.
Which they have
And
done.
meanwhile, nothing
Got
is
it.
happening,
Okay,
right?
yeah, that,
Just because
sure.
the hardest part of these situations is to remove us from the equation,
Yeah,
right? Is there something else happening in their personal life?
Well, that's
Right.
what I'm wondering, because I'm trying not to take it personally. I'm like, what could I have done to piss these people
Probably
off? And
unlikely
I-
that you
I
didn't.
can't think of anything that I would have
No.
done to.
No, you're much too polite a human.
Yeah.
That's,
thanks.
that's not likely the
Thinking.
case. It's very likely that their circumstances have changed
Okay,
and they either are embarrassed about it. They could have been double contracted. We have no idea,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Have you checked POL?
They're thinking that they're.
For what?
See if they bought
They
anything?
never.
No, but I do see that they check the cloud center almost every day.
Very, very.
So then
So-
I would just maintain like touches.
Yeah,
Just like checking in.
right.
I don't know if you noticed, I sent you 123 Smith Street. This one really caught my eye.
Yeah.
And they respond, they don't respond, but
Right.
don't give them more energy than they give back.
Okay, that's what I'm, and like I said, I'm trying
What's
to
that
not
song
take it
by
personally.
Olivia, I think it's Olivia Rodrigo,
Oh, yeah. she's
Vampire.
All about the breakups.
Yeah, it's her vampire song. It's kind of the same idea,
Okay.
right? Because
But-
some clients, you allow
Well,
them,
and that's the thing, like, I don't want it to be overtaking me. I don't
they're
want
not
them to
clients
think-
right now. They
Yeah,
don't put
okay.
them on a contract,
Okay.
they're not responding to calls, they
Yeah.
belong on your lead list,
Yeah.
not on your client list.
And as I was signing up other clients, reading over the BDBA again, I'm like, there's something that specifically says communication, you need to give me communication, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, because we're coming to the end of the contract, do you recommend I reach out in that regard and say,
No.
hey, this is coming, like,
I would wait another week or so, but
Yeah.
at the same time, if they're not even answering you to acknowledge
Yeah.
collab.
yeah. Okay,
If they want to come back, they're gonna
put
come
it
back.
aside and wait for them to reach out,
Just continue to
do the touches.
do the touches even
Yeah.
when the contract ends.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you
Okay.
can't reach out, but I don't think it's gonna get
Yeah,
what you want.
right,
And I think as the main point of communication, as a touch point right now, I think it's going to come off as self-serving.
yes, yeah, and that's the fine line that I'm walking right now.
So because they're basically flicking back to lead, you're not giving any advice.
Okay,
So
all right,
you don't technically need them under BDBA to be able to continue to nurture,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
But I would first always take the first thing of going, wait a minute. It's not about me.
right,
So anytime you've had a friend or something going weird in your life,
yeah,
it's usually them
yeah, it's true. and
that
that's
has
what this
something,
feels like.
that has something, right? And you didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah,
So you start to create all these
that's exactly
scenarios, it's
what's
like a
going
weird
on.
gate,
I
right?
know, and it's not healthy for my mindset right
No,
now.
next.
That's why, okay.
So
All right,
this is
thank you,
where,
that was
but
helpful.
this is where the concept of many things coming into that funnel from different sources
Right.
is so important.
Yes.
Because they all, like, they'll pull at different times
Exactly.
and then you're not so, they have less power over
Well,
you.
that's the thing, they were the first clients I had, so I had all of this time to focus on them and
Yes.
take everything on a personal level. and I was
Yes.
like, yeah, I needed to be busier with more things
Yes.
to be, thank you, helpful.
Perfect. Okay. Poor James didn't get to take a break. Okay, so we've talked about set expectations, blah, blah, blah. We've done all this. Look at me. Flying through shit I don't even know I'm flying through. Set communication expectations. I think I've covered all this jazz with you guys. You're good with that? Set up-to-date market expectations. We've talked about that. I just have said it in a way that's not quite so.
You said it in a more real way. Yes. It's not the regurgitative way.
I really just need 5 points and I'd be fine. I don't need all the points. But it does.
You don't even need that. Sorry.
Even the referral page, we've talked about that. I am gonna go back to the referral page and the review page in a second, as soon as James comes back, and then I will. Wait. Slides for you. My pages, I don't know if they're the same. as yours. It don't, it's irrelevant. You don't need to look at anything.
Okay.
Like,
Just look up there.
If anyone's ever waiting for me to do PowerPoints, they're gonna be very cold in a very warm place. I can remember 100 years ago, I've written 3 courses for NSAR over the years. Anyway, first one I wrote was a professional standards course. And I can remember Roger, who's the CEO at the time, he didn't know me as well as he knows me now. Because I'm past president, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and I can remember I went on tour. We used to do regional meetings and it was 8 days, 9 days long. Because we went to every region. It was like Groundhog Day. You did the same presentation, literally did the same presentation. And had this, but you knew everywhere you went who the you know who was that was in the audience that was gonna be your handler. Anyway, moving on. So we went on this, before we went, they were preparing all their stuff and their scripts and their PowerPoints, and they had said to me, like, I wrote the course, like, and I was the chair of the committee, and I changed the bylaws, and I knew the stuff. And they were like, well, we need your PowerPoint, and I said, no, I'm not getting one. Anyway, they were having heart failure, because they didn't know what the hell I was gonna say.
Oh no, what is Dan gonna say?
Pretty much, yeah. Anyway, so I did the first one, and then they were like, oh, okay, fine. So they've never asked me for a PowerPoint again after, because,
They know better.
well, when I first came here, it'll be 10 years in June, and I remember the first meeting, they were like, so, did you have your PowerPoints for the broker section? What? No. And that's why it just says broker, what does it say, broker?
I don't know. So.
No, in the meeting,
Oh,
broker,
Oh,
Broker's message?
I don't know, broker something. That's my PowerPoint. That's what I was able to give them, like, you can have that. Okay, despite myself, I am actually flicking through all of the content appropriately. So one thing I did just want to hone in on a second before I flipped over to this slide that needs to be in the garbage. Is it's on, for me, it's on page 17. I don't know what page, I don't know if your guys' pages are the same as mine or not. Anyway, it shows 3 steps to gaining referrals, and there's 3 little boxes, and it says providing value, ask for help, and then reward. And so everything that I've been yattering at you about from the start this morning is designed to help you create a referral-based business. Okay. My goal for every agent in this world is that you never go looking for a lead again. Ah! Your phone just rings,
My phone just rang, oh my god.
right?
Unless I'm calling with a problem.
It will happen, but you have to work for it. And if we go back to the previous conversation, it's going to be by being fiduciary versus functionary, by being relationship driven versus functionary. Okay. It's about clearly demonstrating value. Like I was saying, I don't know what the hell, I mean, I know what I do, but you know, thank God I did something because they call me back because I suck at following up with them. So, you know, whoop, you know, I own it. I need to get better at it. I know this. Imagine how busy I'd be if I followed up with them all. They call me anyway. Imagine. So, but when you provide the value, the repeat and referral will come. At the same time, if you talk about having a difficult conversation, another difficult conversation is actually asking your clients who love you for help. And if you approach it from that perspective, that you would love their help in building your business so you can help more families, they're going to help you. And maybe it's as simple as that they will then do your Google review. Right? If you have a buyer and a seller who's the same client, ask them for 2 different reviews. Is what they have to write about are 2 totally different things. Don't ask them for a review, ask them for a 5-star review. I don't ask for anything less than 5, and I don't send it to someone who I don't think is going to give me a 5. It's pretty rare, but there are clients I don't want to work with again. It was fine, but I don't need to sign up for this for life, thank you. Right? But don't ask for a review, ask for a 5-star review.
Do you have any thoughts on?
Do I have any thoughts? What are the odds?
What are your thoughts?
I have any thoughts.
So I mean, I'm self-aware if that counts for anything.
What are your thoughts on Rate My Agent versus Google reviews versus
Google.
Facebook reviews?
Google
Why?
Analytics.
Okay.
If you said to someone, I'm gonna go check out, I'm in another city and I'm gonna go look for restaurant review. Are you gonna go to Yelp or are you gonna go to Google?
But
Do you think a single human has ever heard of Rate My Agent?
what about all of those spam reviews.
They can be removed if they're spam. If they're truly spam, they can be removed.
Really?
Yep.
How? Cause I stopped asking for Google, cause I got so many.
Why are you getting spam reviews? Oh, right, because you're the one that's out with pedophiles and the drug dealers. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. We've had lots of conversations about, where is she prospecting? I'm teasing. You shouldn't be getting a lot of spam Google reviews. That's bizarre. That's,
Google, and then also on Facebook. Of course, I expect them on Facebook. I shut down my Facebook reviews, cause I think I had 7 legit and 21.
you are the first person I've heard with this massive a
Really?
problem. Yeah.
And I don't even use Facebook that much.
So, yeah, I don't care about Facebook reviews. I only want Google.
Okay. so
Personally.
Yeah.
Now, you could potentially, in your particular case, because you just formed a team, you could shut the previous stuff down
True.
and open a new one connected to your new email. That would be my suggestion in your particular case.
Okay.
Like I had, in case I'm not selling the joys of being a broker enough. I actually had a consumer who was cranky with one of our humans, who was a legit lunatic because that's what I get to talk about. Who was unhappy with a certain sort of situation and asked me to intervene and fix it. And I said, I will work on it, blah, blah. This was at like, I don't know, 8 o'clock at night. The next day, this person has written a scathing review on my personal
Oh,
De Silva Goss page about this other person. And I mean, it was like, I went from 5 stars, like everything we have is 5 down to, they give us a 1, obviously, because you can less than a 1 anyway. And I spoke to this person and said, you know, like, whoa, like these two things have nothing to do with each other. That's my personal sale of business. This is me as a broker, blah, blah, blah. And you have literally not given me 5 minutes to do anything. Well, yeah, well, whenever it's done, you know, and you get it fixed, I'll take it down. BS, did not. I was able to get Google to remove it. There is a higher escalation level of Google, which I have to dig to find, let me tell you. Because I was able to prove that the person with which they were speaking did not belong to the De Silva Goss group. Right, so it wasn't about us, and so I was able to get it removed, right? But otherwise, it's not usually an issue. When is the best time to ask for a Google review? Fine, finished. So I'm going to give you a saucy answer and I'm going to give you a practical answer. They're both right. Okay. When is the right time to ask for a Google review? Always. It doesn't matter if you did a deal with them 2 years ago. Go and ask them.
what if you weren't sure how happy they were?
Don't ask them.
Yeah.
I would,
Borderline.
no, but if you follow up with them in general, right? And,
Yeah.
and then, you know, you'll gauge from there, then you can
Yeah.
decide, right? But
Just trying to up your number of reviews by looking.
You wanna
looking
be-
at History.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Thinking.
and don't ask your neighbors, okay, like, it's not legit if it's not real, right? But then I can tell you, if you're in a transaction, there's this beautiful sweet spot. If you remember to do it, and how would we remember to do it? Maybe our systems will tell us to do it, or it's an auto reminder and smart plan and command that tells you to do it. Then there's the perfect sweet spot for the happiest, most prolific reviews is the minute you're firm.
I was just gonna say, right, if you're firm, and you have to wait till closing in that.
Well, everything's perfect on
Yeah.
firm.
Yeah.
You're the most magical human in the world. They hung a sold sign. They have an accepted offer as a buyer. Firm is your absolutely perfect time. But failing that, any other damn time, right? Don't not do it because you didn't do it then. We were talking about Google reviews. I think I chatted about it when I was here last time with you guys and how I'd been to this conference in the fall. And it's like one of these things where you go, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Why didn't I think of that? And it was about Google reviews. And it was the, you know, how many Google reviews are you giving? Have you given your partners Google reviews? Do any of your clients, do you use any of your clients' businesses? Have you given them Google reviews? The whole world is based on you get what you give. I don't care what it is. Any of the people in your life that if they needed anything, you would stop, drop and roll. They called you in the middle of the night with emergency, you go. Because they trust it based on that reciprocal give and take. But we're asking and we're not giving.
I had an agent that I dealt with, say to me that she came back from a conference, I can't remember where, and it was the exact same thing. But also that she would give reviews to other.
You can review each other,
agents.
yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't ask them unless you actually want to hear what they have to say. But you've done deals with people and they're like, oh my God, this was amazing. I'll tell you a funny thing. You don't have to do this anymore. It is the stupidest rule that ever existed of all of the stupid rules. A million years ago, before I came here, I owned my own brokerage. I had my brokerage for 8 years. And in order to open a brokerage, you used to have to get letters of recommendation from 3 competing brokers to be allowed to open a brokerage and be a member of NSAR.
It's like Survivors.
Yeah, I mean, it's really anti-competitive. Like, they can't do it anymore. They don't do it anymore, right? But if they don't like you, then no, anyway. So I had to go to people that I'd done business with and tell them what I was doing, which first of all, you know, that isn't always the best business decision, but anyway, it is what it is. And ask them to write me letters of recommendation to allow me to become an owner of their shop. So if I can do that, y'all can do this, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, are you the partners that you use in your life? I don't care who it is, plumber, dentist, restaurant, your client has a whatever business. Have you used your client's business, first of all? Have you bought the thing from the person? Or recommended them, right? You get what you give.
As a new person, would you recommend asking people, you know, for like a virtual kind of references or that kind of?
I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer for you on that. I think,
You haven't done a whole lot of deals.
yeah, but even if, like, I have asked people, I've had people who, James just talking about Ontario people, I had a set of Ontario people who I, worked with and ran around with, and they ended up buying in New Brunswick. Yes, yeah, but moving on.
I had the same clients.
And,
Irritating.
but they wrote a Google review about the work I had done with them here, even though they didn't end up buying. Right?
Okay.
So you might, maybe you get to the point where you're in process with them and you ask them for feedback, if they can give you a Google review on where you're at to date, right? On your prep process and how comfortable they feel and, pardon me. Because if it doesn't actually have like anything to do with real estate, but they'll come, right? But I will tell you, if you build it into your machine at firm, they're the most excited with you then, right? The seller has not left the house as a pigsty and now undone everything that you did, all that, right? So that's what that is. So then,
The Google reviews, I don't know if they have a Google page, like how does
that would be the first step, is that you need
Yeah.
to open the Google page.
you do have?
Yes.
Okay. It's really easy to set up.
Yeah, it's super
Is it?
easy, yeah. Google is very user friendly.
Not like a website or
You, it's very easy.
anything. You can set it up through Gmail.
Yeah.
Uh,
And your KWs are Gmails in the background.
Yes, that's right.
By the way. This is the questions to ask, blah, blah, blah. We've done that. Showing homes means agent interaction. I will say, when it comes to working with buyers or sellers, one of the things that I will harp on for a second is there's a lot of stuff to know about houses. Like a lot. And until you do a lot of inspections and show a lot of properties, you don't know as much as you think you do, right? You don't know, you'll learn all about the different heating systems, in floor, in ceiling, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Until you've seen them, you don't know. I very highly recommend that you, anytime there is an agent open house, that you go. I very highly recommend anytime they do any type of agent tours, those come and go because they're really hard to keep consistent. You go. Anytime you're, in an environment where if you're co-listed or doing something where you have agency that you can go with someone else. You could even have, for example, you could have a buyer who's trying to buy something odd that you've never dealt with before. Maybe it's even just like a really old house. And that Maureen has never seen something like that, and you talk to your buyer and ask if you could throw her on agency for the time of the inspection so she can attend and learn. Help each other. Gotta throw them on agency. Yes, don't forget that, right? But you have to go. Right? Follow your home inspectors around. Ask a million questions. Because when you're working with a seller, when you're going to prep their house, you need to spot some of the main things that could bite them in the arse. That maybe we need to look into this before we go to market. We need to know how much this is gonna cost. So that we're not a victim of a buyer's agent's quotes. If you don't have any idea what the thing is or what the thing's gonna cost to fix, you're gonna get eaten alive by me. And I've done it. 100% I've done it. My quotes are real, like I'm not trying to bamboozle you, but you have no leverage with me because you don't have the information. Right? So being able to prep your seller on the things. So for example, everybody knows that a hot water tank cannot be over 10 years old, correct? Smile and nod at me, yes, smile and nod. The insurability, they don't all just blow up at 10 years, but the insurance company has decided that they do. Same as outside oil tanks, they all just apparently disintegrate at 10 years, right? 10 years is the line. Period. Full stop. Now, it doesn't mean you're gonna ask for it. It's all relative to what else shows up. If you're the buyer's agent, if you had to pick between an oil tank and a roof, you're probably gonna pick the roof. And the buyer might have to buy their own oil tank. See where I'm going with that? But you need to prep the buyer when you're showing the house. You're gonna look at the age of the oil tank. You're gonna look at the age of the hot water heater when you show the house. So your buyer is prepared when you negotiate that we already know we might have to account for these things. Then when the building inspector shows up, you look like such a smarty pants. When the building inspector goes, oh, well, this is 11, and they go, oh yes, you warned us about that. It's nothing I love better, right? But if I'm a seller, and it's now almost $3,000 to put in an oil tank, compared to when I started, because remember, it was 100 years ago.
$29.99.
$29.99, right, exactly. I need to prep my seller that this is gonna come up. So if they don't have the $3,000, which in most cases they don't, all their money is in the house, then we're gonna have to factor it as a closing allowance or holdback. Because they're not getting insurance. No insurance, no mortgage, no sale. Now, maybe we're in a bidding war and it doesn't come up and that's fine, but the odds are it is. So you need to know about houses. It's hard. So we have on NSAR's training hub, there's a whole pile of courses. There's some on CREA. There's one on water systems. There's one on septic. There's a few different ones. We have some in our video library here as well on YouTube. That would be an Erin question. Please don't ask me the details of where or what exactly. But we have recordings of like heating people coming in and water people coming in, and like anytime there is a single course that is offered here by a house type professional, you need to attend. Like I know on my team, if we have like, something weird or unique, we'll tell our clients, can we drag the team? Oh, like that for another. We had like 9 people standing over a hole, like, whatever, right? Because you need to see it. When you do a building inspection, you need to follow the inspector around. Do not sit at the kitchen table and do work. I know building inspectors have told me of agents who have had a nap on the couch. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Like, you need to see, touch, smell the thing to understand the thing, if you're going to negotiate for the thing, whatever the thing is. If you're afraid of heights, get over it. Get your head up in the attic so you can see it. You need to see, climb under the house with them. I mean, don't put yourself at risk, obviously, but you know, sometimes pictures work, sometimes you want to see it. So go see it. Your clients will lose their minds. They love it. You can say to them, you can go visit, measure, do whatever. I'll come get you. If there's something you need to know. Most of them hang around the whole time. We tell all our clients that really, if we spend our entire building inspection time chatting about, you know, the kids and the dog and what you're going to decorate with, we've had a great inspection. They're supposed to be boring. Great ones are boring. Really entertaining inspections are not great inspections. Right? But you need to know about houses. Because that would be a what kind of agent?
Fiduciary.
Correct.
Ding.
Ding. Because, so you need to learn. You could, as part of your networking and business development, going back to the bazillion other sessions you've taken, maybe you need to go and take a roofer for coffee and ask about the difference between this and that and why, or, you know, go talk to a heat pump company. Like, go learn. Why are you waiting for someone to show up and teach it to you? If you don't know anything about heating systems, go talk to a heating guy. Right? If you don't know anything about sewer lines, wow, I have such an exciting Google Drive. I have every septic and sewer video we've ever done as a team is in my Google Drive. Woohoo! It's pretty riveting. People are just dying to break into my Google Drive. But I mean, we know right away what's happening and we can explain it. I recently had a client who was in a bidding war for a property. He didn't get it, which is fine. And I said, they wanted to go in clean. And I said, because this person is a contractor, that's fine. And I said, in this area, you need to budget 15 grand for sewer line. Because this person can't tell us whether or not it's been done or not. And this area is known for it. Guarantee it's no corrode. Right? So I said, you need a budget for it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it used to be 3 grand, now it's about 50. And that's assuming it doesn't go into the damn driveway. So where's the sewer line come out? Can we tell in advance if it's going under the driveway? Yes, you can. Look for where the sewer line comes out. You'll know. They don't usually go at an angle. They usually go out straight.
And how do you know, like you spoke off the numbers right off the top of your head? How do we
Experience.
how do we get to know that?
You go back to what I had just said. Go meet professionals. Go make relationships.
Okay.
Go learn. You know, go to the freaking home show. Like, go talk to a heating dude or whatever, right? If you don't know these things, right, then you go talk to an electrician. Do you know what arcing is? Do you know what double tapping is? Do you know these things? Then go meet with an electrician. Ask them to tell you the most common things they see wrong in an electrical panel. Ask them what it costs to go from breakers or fuses to breakers. Ask them what it costs to go from 100 amp to 200 amp. Ask the professionals. Your value is, we go back to what I remember you asking this question specifically about delivering value and handing value. And I challenged James on that by saying, I don't think the value you provide is the fancy brochure. I think the value you provide is what comes out of your mouth. So if you can't walk into a house and confidently go boom, 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 then you need to learn how to be able to go boom, boom, boom. And whether that's, again, you could just tour open houses on Sundays. Go do a bunch of open houses. And if the agent says, you know, you can say, I don't have clients right now, but I'm really trying to learn this neighborhood and I can't promote your house or your listing if I haven't been in it. So here I am. Go through the house. Go look around.
Is it like, I would say it's not illegal, but is it ethical to like book?
No, you cannot do that.
You know, that's
Do not do that. Think of that poor seller who thinks you are coming to buy their house.
Right, and that's kind of where my brain
Yeah,
is at. So it's
don't do it.
open house.
Don't do
Okay.
it. Yeah.
I've never done it. I just was like, what if sometimes I'm really interested in seeing what that house looks like.
See if they have an open house. See if they have an agent open house, see if they have an open house, go.
Can you ask if you can piggyback on another viewing that's already set and jump in? I've had,
You're not jumping in on my frickin' viewing.
not during the viewing, but right after.
No, I don't want you to,
No, that's, okay.
because I don't want my time restricted and I'm gonna limit what I say if there's someone else around, because I don't know who the hell your clients are. If you have,
No, what I mean, I don't think we're.
okay, well, you tell me what, I'm not understanding.
And yeah, an agent who just wants to see the house for whatever reason, say to the listing agent, can you add me on to the end of an existing?
What is the reason you were giving me as my, if I'm the listing agent, what are you telling me?
You're just curious if you, I don't know,
I'm not, I'm not gonna tell my seller to let you in.
okay.
Go learn somewhere else. You're not wasting my seller's time.
What if you preview it for for a client that?
If you're truly previewing it.
Truly, yeah.
But I always ask you to put yourself in the other person's shoes. So if you're the seller's agent and that booking comes through for your client, they're like, what's the feedback? And you're like, well, I just found out they were just trying to learn about heating systems. They're gonna lose their frickin' mind, right? Or if you're saying, well, I'm previewing for your buyer, but you don't actually have a buyer, well, then you're lying. And I just don't think that that's appropriate. Can you get away with it? Yeah. Is anyone gonna know? No. Is it the right thing to do? No. That poor seller has stayed out of their house with kids and dogs and cleaned up and done whatever, so that you could, no. Go to the agent open houses. You might win a prize. They always feed you. Go to all of them, right? We know the only way to lower realtors is with food. We're aware of this, right? Go to all the agent open houses. Tour the houses, learn. You'll also see how people price. You'll also get ideas on really cool feature packages. You'll see other things that you can steal. And you're gonna learn houses. Go to as many open houses as you can. Go on any agent tours that are there. And meet with the people of the things that you don't know. I only know this stuff because I've been doing it for 20 years. I couldn't tell you how many inspections I've been on. Not a flipping clue. A lot. It's an excellent answer. A lot.
100 years worth.
Feels like it sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, right? But I only know that because I, like, I can't remember when it was. Maybe 6 or 7 years ago that arc fault interrupters became a requirement to do panels. Right? So I know that. I know they have to be in the bedrooms. Now, where do the smoke detectors have to be in a new house? What are your egress windows? Can you spot an egress window hole? Do you carry measuring tape in your car? You better. Right?
And now I had to replace the windows in my house and I realized that egress had just changed.
Well, but it's, the window itself may not be the right thing, but is the hole big enough?
Yeah.
Can you actually stick one in? Right? Do you understand construction to any degree? So I can remember selling a house to a client in Sackville and we were going to they wanted to make one of the rooms downstairs a bedroom. There was no window. I'm wandering around outside, trying to measure and figuring out my foundation line is halfway, even though there was no window. I had enough room foundation wise to get an expert in to actually put a window in. They did. They had to cut through the concrete, but it was fine because we were above grade. Right? So what solutions can you provide? That's your value, but you need to understand more than just negotiation. You need to understand houses, right? Do you understand French drains? Meet with a landscaper. You need to understand drainage. Big time. It's a bigger and bigger problem than we've ever had. Go meet with the people, right? Landscapers right now, if they're not doing snow, they're quiet. They have time to meet with you. Right? For example, okay? So that's what I'm putting here under your show your homes, your home toolkit. I can remember when I got licensed, we were told to have like a bin front of our car. We were supposed to have like a mallet to install signs because I used to have to install our own. It's like carrying a crucifix, those things, they are really big. Anyway. I'm sorry, I realize that's not very politically correct, but I'm telling you, that's what it's like. I'm 5'2", the thing is longer than I am. Anyway, yes, you should have a flashlight. You should have a really, really good flashlight that's got like 1 million looms, right?
Not your phone.
not your phone, right? You're gonna show houses where there's no power in the basement. You're gonna show houses where it just suddenly turns dark. You know, you timed it, you took too long inside. Start outside when you're at dusk, by the way. Always start out when you're getting close to dusk and then go in. Don't do in first.
A quick question before.
Yep.
If you don't mind. Is it okay to carry a bag with you with all your tools in it?
Do whatever you want.
I worry about people thinking if something's stolen, then
I mean,
you
I
go
know,
with the open bag that you're.
well, personally, I'll be honest, I run back to my car. I carry, if I know I may want to measure windows up front because of the
Yeah.
pictures I saw, then I'll probably bring my flashlight. Measure tape in. Flashlight is normally a surprise where you get in there and go, for God's sake, I can't see anything, right? This one room doesn't have a light or, you know, whatever. And so I literally have a spot, I could probably land a plane. Like I've got this, like a mag light, it was like $50,
Yeah.
like they're not cheap, right?
No.
And it's a weapon, right? Like it's like a thing. But looms, by the way, are the thing you need to care about for flashlights. The higher the number, the better.
You need like 30,000.
I like, yeah, it's like, you know, like you want to land a plane. That's how you're gonna show a house, you know, you want to be able to spot as it's dusk, you want to be able to show soffits. You know, you want to look under a deck, you need a flashlight, right? Yeah, you know, first aid kits, well, we should all technically have first aid kits in our car. I don't, I'm not gonna lie. I should, but I don't. I have junk cables if anybody needs those, but. Right, but, you know, they're gonna decide, you know, what do they have here? Flashlight level. I'm not measuring anything with a level. Personally, when I'm showing a house, you can, you know, I actually have this really funny video. One of my agents stuck in a house. I've never seen the wonkier floors in my life. Like you could spot a wonky floor, right? Maybe you want to carry a marble. You want to carry, right? But, you know, it basically, you know, the main things you're going to use the most often, I would say honestly, are flashlight and measuring tape. If they're going to be two things that you're going to tuck, put them in your glove box and then you go, oh, just a minute, I got the great flashlight, and out you go, right? They're impressed because you're ready, right? Safety first. So this is a big one that we're terrible at. We're all terrible at it. I'm terrible at it. And this is not a woman only discussion. And we please also have this conversation. We are very fortunate. I do believe we only have one instance that I'm aware of a realtor being hacked or whatever in Canada that I'm aware of. But in the US, it has happened several times. And I was at a conference. There's the famous lady whose name I cannot remember. I'm so sorry. Think about it. I'll walk into the room and I'll remember. Who was showing a house and she was murdered. And it's happened a couple of times. And it has to do with, you know, going to people kind of call, it's usually someone who calls up a sign, right? You're alone in an open house. I do not let my team do open houses on their own. They're either in a pair or they have a mortgage partner. Right? If I'm showing a house out in the middle of nowhere, then I have very often dragged my husband. He has sat in the car. I can bring my daughter. It doesn't matter. It's just another person, right? Waiting. If you're going somewhere, you know, tell a human where you are. I'm not just going to go show houses. This is where I'm going to be. This is my schedule. Right? You guys know about the slim file. We've talked about that here.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. But, you know, it could be anything. Like if you called, you could decide, pick a buddy. Who's your buddy? And if you call, you know, what is something you could ask someone that would be like, you know, oh, I have to, if you called and you said to any one of you, you know, I don't know, you think of whatever it is. You know, but that appointment for, you know, Center Street, it doesn't matter, right? That's your code, right? Maybe that's the person you have on the Find My Phone. Every type of phone has it, I think. I have a Apple. I don't know what the Androids do. I don't know who has an Android phone. I have an Android phone.
They do with Android, you can do it through Google.
Yeah.
Like if you have a Gmail, and that's, I don't know if the Android has like Find My Phone. Like,
Yeah. But something
Yeah.
like, you know, don't put your phone down. Keep your phone in your hand when you're showing properties so that you can press the emergency button if you need to. I'm not trying to scare anyone, but let's, you know, we meet strangers alone in the dark in an empty house and in the woods. You know, I like to go show this cottage to a stranger that I've never met who called me online in the middle of the woods that's vacant. Let's do that. Right? So just think, guys, okay? I'll also tell you that if you bring a buddy to an open house and there's nobody there, it's way less boring. Right? Bring a mortgage person. They love it.
Oh, they do.
They love it.
Coffee.
If you're on a team, buddy up. If you're not on a team, you can still buddy up, but you got to do your paperwork. You know, or just make sure that, you know, somebody knows when you're supposed to be where. We're terrible at it, 100%. It's a really hard habit. But that's what we should do. This one is interesting in terms of the slide because it shows you a picture of camera. I'm going to squirrel away on that one for a second. Because technically on the cut sheet, there is the option to say it's not a mandatory field, to say whether there are recording devices in the property. Assume that there is my advice to you. Assume that you're being recorded at the door. So don't talk about clients' bottom lines and all of that in a house. And ask, you know, you can also tell, this sounds terrible. Generationally, you'll also get a feel for whether or not the odds are you're being recorded if you can't spot them. Right? If you walk into grandma's house and there's not a computer, the odds are pretty low that you've got a Nest camera hiding somewhere, right? But, you know, just be aware because that's our.
Sure.
Thank you. Press the button. James. To protect your client's interests. And if you're in there and they're yakking on and on about how much they can afford and what they can do, even standing out in the yard, how loud are they? Are they loud talkers like on Seinfeld? What are they doing? Right? So, you know, I often say, we'll have this conversation after. We'll talk about this after. Let's talk about the house and we'll have these conversations when we're away from the property. You can't take back. I was helping an agent who was away cover one of her listings. And it was a kind of a messy one, which is why I got tagged in anyway. And I had met with the seller while this person was away, and they were telling me about how they heard people yakking at the front door and stuff they were saying about the house and whatever. You know, sometimes it's nice stuff, sometimes it's not nice stuff. So, you know, just assume that. So yes, think about your own safety, but also think about what could be happening in a house that could affect your client's transaction or sale or whatever. And in some cases, you need to tell them to keep their mouth shut.
Yes.
Right. Oh, look, there's a slide that says it's your job to sell homes, not show homes. Moving on. Talk about that. Reasons why buyers hesitate. It says they are afraid to commit. They don't like some minor detail of the home. They feel they haven't seen enough homes. They need to sleep on it, and or get the opinion of another trusted advisor. So what do you think my thoughts are on this section?
Can you read that again?
Reasons why buyers hesitate. They are afraid to commit. They don't like some minor detail of the home. That's your clients over there who are nitpicking 100 homes. They feel they haven't seen enough homes and they need to sleep on it and or get the opinion of a trusted advisor. What are some of your solutions to that?
Sounds like you haven't, well, with the last one for sure, they need to sleep on it first. If something else, they don't trust your advice, or you're not giving them what they need, I guess, as advice.
Yes and no. I think in some cases like that, it would depend on the experience of the person.
Sure.
If there's an offer deadline, of course, it's not such a big deal, right? Because, you know, you have the time. But the question would be, what is it that they need to sleep on? And is that something you haven't covered? Or do they have all the information and they're just deciding? It's two different things. So if we go back to they're afraid to commit, they don't like some minor detail of the home, and they feel they haven't seen enough homes, in my opinion, that goes back to the buyer consultation and you're setting the expectations. One of the things that we tell our buyers, have for years, is that they need to not panic because our systems are so strong that the odds are very high we'll find it on the first go. Because we're going to filter so that we know what their list is. So if you've said, you know, these are my top 10 things that I need. And these are the top 8 things or top 10 things I want. And you say you get 9 and 8. And you can go tick, 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 tick with your client. Then you're saying, so technically this is this. So then maybe you're saying, does it make your heart happy? Can you picture your Christmas tree here? If they have a Christmas tree, obviously, you know, based on the human.
Yeah.
Right? Can you picture yourself having your coffee here? Yep. Okay.
The ones that say, I just don't get that feeling when I walk in there.
Next, next. And you're
Next
gonna,
house or next client?
next house. Next. Because it is, sometimes there's little, I've had done feedback where I've said to the agent, I've got nothing. The house is beautiful. It's just not their house.
Yeah.
And, you know, this was great. This was great. I might suggest X or Y. But I have nothing, there's nothing about the house that your clients could have done differently to make my clients buy the house. It's just not their house.
Yeah.
Right? Say yes to the dress. This is what you're talking about, right? Sometimes it's just that simple. It's not their house. You have no reason. It's just not their house. Okay, but that's different than every single freaking time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's different, right? You know, they don't like some minor detail. That's about expectations. What are you getting? Unless you're buying new construction, you're gonna have to change something. And even then, yeah, managing expectations, yeah, yeah. So what is reasonable? They haven't seen enough homes. Again, that's about preparation. You know, if, depending on the consumer, if you have, in most cases, women, not to be whatever, but in most cases, women, you can use the winner's analogy. That one works really well, right? Where you saw the pair of shoes and you went to go home and think about it for 3 days and you came back and they're all gone. And they're gone. This inventory is gone. Right? If it's something super specific that your clients want, meaning a particular school district or on a particular street or whatever, then it isn't like next, it's this or none. And having that difficult conversation about, I can tell you that only 2 houses that have come up on the street in 10 years. So if we want this street, then we need to figure out whether we can make this house work. Right? So that's what that's about. Guidelines to facilitating decision-making. We've talked a lot about this. Always go back to their motivation, go back to their wants and needs, allay their fears, solve their challenges, calculate the costs of waiting. So I can give you an example with sellers. You'll have sellers who say, there's an expression with listings, it's called price or patience. You can't have both. Very simple. Well, I'm gonna sit, I'm gonna wait. This is the price I want. So let's say the house is vacant. This is always very good when the house is vacant. You know, this is the price I want. Okay, yeah, well, you know, this, you know, we're the feedback, the blah, 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 whatever, you know. If you've done everything, you've marketed the professional, yada, yada. So the only thing left is price, right? And you go through and then they say, no, I think I'm gonna stick to this price. So then you might ask them, okay. Let's say you're trying to suggest that they drop 5 grand, 10 grand, let's say 10 grand. Well, the house is vacant, so what is your mortgage payment? What is your insurance payment? What is your heat payment? You're heating this thing right now. What is your power bill? What is your oil bill? So let's calculate that for 3 months. That's more than it's going to cost you if we drop the price right now. Your net dollar is not greater. Net. They might say, no, I'm gonna, okay. Okay. But when your check at the end is exactly the same goddamn thing, but this took 3 months longer. Okay. Or they're arguing about the price versus closing date. But it's gonna cost you X amount, or we might lose the house we're trying to buy. Like, that's what they're talking about here is, you know, how to put the whole thing together. Because I'm not a good yes man. Okay. What sellers want most from their agents? Help them price competitively, help seller market the home, help them find ways to fix it up, etc. It all breaks it down. Long and short is the same thing, is what are the expectations? If you fix this, I can price you at Y. If you don't fix this, I can price you at X. If you do this, your days on market will be this. If you don't, your days on market will be this. They're in control. You're just giving them the reality and the options. Does that make sense? You know, I don't want to paint and it looks like, you know, I don't know, it's like yellowy and smoky. Okay. It's like a 5,000% return on paint. But, you know, okay, right? They don't want to clear the junk out from underneath the deck. All right. But, you know, they've made it really shiny inside. Okay, well, that sends the wrong message. What are the conversations you're having? So, interestingly, there's a graph that is essentially price versus patience. Price plus time frame plus conveyance is exactly what that is. Price or patience. We're not 2020, 2021, 2022, where you could sell a bag of you know what in 3 days for some silly amount of money. That's not where we are. We're back to a skill-based market where there is the demand is there, but the word I want. The absolute frenzy is not. So they'll wait. They'll wait a bit. Next, they're comfortable in their lease, you know, it's fine, you know, gonna cost them about the same. They like to own, the rates are kind of the same, so there's really not a huge rush. Unless there is a something, and that's a different, you know, but price or patience, what would you like? But that means having a difficult or thorough conversation. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, it does go through the Y4C2Ts. Are you guys all familiar with the Y4C2Ts?
It's not like it's behind.
That's all good. So it's on the front wall. You can go stand in the front lobby if you want to. But it goes with this conversation. And I truly believe that you all believe this. You just don't necessarily know it. I'm not recommending that you wander around yakking the Y4C2Ts to your clients. That's going to be a little weird. Possibly, but maybe it's a part of embodying that into your own mission statement and what your own core values are. But it comes down to win-win or no deal. Integrity is your I, do the right thing. I'm sure I don't know why this slide is not. Oh, look. Ah. Same thing. Why am I showing you something that is wrong? Right? Now, but so I'll give you an example if we go back to this for 1 second. Because you're all talking about your friendly Ontario buyers. Who are like, well, I need to be on natural gas. Well, I'm really sorry, because there's 7 homes I can sell you. You know, we're excellent at piping it underneath us and out delivering it to the rest of the country, but we don't actually use it. Right? Right? We have the highest percentage of oil use in the country. It is what it is. So if you're not prepared to consider a house with electric heater oil, then you are not buying a house likely. Unless you have a really good budget that I can get you into a newer home or one that's converted. Right? So what are your expectations? What are you educating them on? 99.9% of properties in Ontario have central air. We do not. Ducted heat pump.
Oh.
Right? Because they're not on the ocean. It's like sitting on the fires of hell when you're in Ontario in the winter. In the summer, it's hot, muggy. Right? It doesn't cool down at night. It's 30 degrees at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's 30 degrees at 11 o'clock at night. Right? We don't have that. We get it to cool down. So what is the expectation? We have to look at whether that can be added to any property. Right? Which goes back to understanding heating systems. If there's a ducted furnace, we can add the add-on heat pump, or we could replace it with an electric ducted heat pump. Oh, but now we need to upgrade the electrical panel. You need to know that when you're showing the house, so you can handle that objection. Which is showing homes on a needs analysis. You may not have it now, but can I make it be the thing you want? Do you understand purchase plus improvement mortgages? So that you could show a property that has everything else that's perfect, but they hate the kitchen. But everything else is perfect. How do we fund it? Do they qualify for purchase plus improvements? Do you have a contractor on hand that you can get in to get that quote, that you need to get that funding? You guys following me? So how can you be solution-based? How do you provide value? This is providing value versus dripping collab to them. That's my personal 2 cents. So if I sent them something and they go, yes, but I told you I only want a white kitchen, and I go, yes, but this is X price, and we know you can do purchase plus improvements, and everything else ticks the box. That's why I sent it to you. We need to go look at it. You have clients that are on handy, sell them a house owned by an 80-year-old that looks like it's 1975 because the bones are perfect. And they get to do fun, sexy stuff like change a carpet or countertop. Windows, roof, and siding are not exciting. A new septic, not very sexy. Ooh, everyone comes over, you don't go, "Ooh, let's all go to the window, everybody. Let's go and look at my lawn. Guess what's underneath it? That's not exciting, right? Nobody cares. So how are you meeting their needs? And what are the solutions that you can come up with to help do that? They're like mud. Perfect.
Right, on what they said.
Yep.
And you're trying to help get to that, so they have success,
Correct.
so that's.
So, for example, you might do it and ask in your buyer consultation, whether they're sellers that are buying, whatever, it doesn't matter. You might say, do you want an eat-in kitchen or a dining room? Or it doesn't matter. And they go, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm good with whatever. Unless they show them 5 homes. The 3 that they really like, I'll have a gigantic open concept, humongous kitchen where they could sit like the entire neighborhood versus the smaller kitchen in the dining room. They said they don't care, but guess what? They do care. So then you get to say, don't know if you noticed, but these 3 have X, so we're going to stop looking at ones with boxy dining rooms. And they're going to go, oh, you're right. Or it's the boxy neighborhood, boxy house, but you go, that's not a load bearing wall. Do you know what a load bearing wall is? Right?
You actually do know
Right,
that.
so you know what, we could open this up. If everything else is right, that might be a purchase plus improvement. Now, if God's are also then in 5 years, they're gonna go back and sell the house and they haven't done it, but that's a different conversation. But this is about the analysis and understanding. Same thing when you're working with sellers. These, you run your stats, these are our days on market, our average is 45 days, let's say. I hope that we're faster, but I need to set that our expectation is going to be 45 to 90 because that's normal. For example. Right? Is there something about the house you're going to list that's unique? And not always in a great, unique way that could delay their days on market. You need to tell them that most buyers are going to have a problem with X. We just need the one right buyer, but it might take us longer.
What are some examples of that you've seen?
Cool.
Pool is one. They're very polarizing.
Just having people.
Right. People on a busy street, right? If you have to take your life in your hand to back out onto the road, right? Things like that. Is it loud? Right? I remember a million years ago showing a house that had 1 full bath and 2 half bath. 1 half bath was literally in the kitchen. Like in the kitchen, like the wall, this is the stove and this is the fridge and they're looking at each other and there's a wall here with the door. And we thought, oh, that must be a pantry. That's the toilet. That's weird. And then in the same house, the main bath, other than the ensuite, the main bath, you had to go through either bedroom. Like you couldn't get to this without going through another room. It was,
Jack Jill.
yeah, but there was no other access. So if those 2 people, like say you had someone staying over and, but anyway, you had to go through the bedrooms. I'm like, they're like, oh, that's great. I'm like, it's a little weird, right? Like some people, might think this is odd, right?
Yeah.
You're You know, so you open the fridge and they're like, oh, excuse me, and the person's literally coming out of the bathroom right there. It's like, this is weird, right? It's just a little gross, but that's me, right? Like really in the kitchen. Not like the old 70s house where it's like to the side by the mud door, but in the kitchen. I mean, like in the kitchen. Right? So, you know, okay, you could say, okay, they might think this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Okay, great. I just need to tell you that some people might think this is odd. Right? So again, it's not everything. You can sell everything. That's not the issue,
Buy it for every house, right?
but you need to set the expectations. What else is it? Yeah, on it. So when, I don't know where this, I feel like the slides she gave, I don't know where the the dual agency slide is, but I'm gonna scroll on for a second. So everybody here, I do believe, knows my thoughts on transaction brokerage, correct? No?
I don't know your personal thoughts on it, but. Yeah.
So it's essentially banned at KW. If you submit a transaction brokerage, I will be flagged the minute it hits command. And you will receive a phone call. Why? So let me explain. When I first got here, 98% of our double ends were transaction brokerage, not customer. If we get one transaction brokerage a year, maybe now, and that person usually will never do it again. It's like I have a conversation with them. So I want to explain it to you because I don't want you to be afraid to double end, but I want to make sure that you do it properly. Okay?
I'm afraid to double it.
Well, okay, now let's also talk about double ending requires a level of skill that is extreme if you're going to do it properly. It is the very first way to get sued is to do transaction brokerage, number one. And a great deal of consumer complaints come from customer status. So why not transaction brokerage? So there is a really lovely handout on the broker page on kwselect.ca, our internal thing about how to actually do transaction brokerage, what the measure is. And it's an impossible standard. So number one, your buyer and seller need to be of the same sophistication and experience. If you're going to do transaction brokerage, because no one's getting any advice. So they both have to be of equal skill. Right? It doesn't work. So, they have to be of equal skill because you're Switzerland. So they have, your measure a scale. They have to be like this. Can't be like this. That's not fair. Right? That's not Switzerland. This is Switzerland. So they both have to be of equal skill and experience. Everyone assumes it's the buyer. Could be grandma's never sold a house. And we've got a bunch of flippers. Right? We're this way. You with me? The buyer has to already be under contract, not signed up the moment they want to write on your listing. They have to be an existing, pre-existing buyer designated agreement. Who happens to be of the same sophistication of the listing client that you have. So right now, our measure is almost impossible. Right? Secondly, well, thirdly, I guess, you can have no opinion. And you think I'm opinionated, but I can tell you all have strong opinions. And you always, when you're working for a buyer, you work for a buyer. You know, you're not going to do anything wrong with the seller, but you don't care about the seller. Now pretend that they're both yours. You have conflicting interests. The seller wants the highest price with the least problems, and the buyer wants the lowest price and wants everything fixed. It doesn't work. Add to that, if you actually explained a transaction brokerage form properly to a seller, they wouldn't sign it. Because it basically says, hi, Mrs. Seller. So I've been working with you in marketing your property and, you know, advertising it and doing everything. And, you know, we've talked about your bottom line and what you want to do next. And now I have a buyer, but I actually can't advise you anymore. But I'd still like you to pay me my full commission while I give you no advice through this process. Do you think a seller would actually sign this goddamn form? No. If you have the buyer as a customer, it changes nothing for the seller. let me change that, how I want to explain that. A buyer who is in transaction brokerage gets no advice. A buyer who's a customer gets no advice. So it changes nothing for the buyer. It's exactly the same. You're not helping them in either way. You're Switzerland. For the seller, it does change everything because they go from still having advice to not having advice. So let's say you have a customer. Or we'll go back. You have a transaction brokerage. You have two clients in theory who are just perfectly equal and they were both existing and, you know, all the universe is lining up supposedly. Now, James, you're the buyer and Laura, you're my seller. And you want this list of things done. So I can't give you advice. So you tell me you want this laundry list of inspection items done. So I write up the amendment as you tell me to write it up. And I know that she can't do it, but I can't tell anybody anything. And then I go to you and you get it. And you say to me, well, what do you think? And I have to say, well, what do you think? And you go, well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. Well, you know, you'll have to ask your lawyer. Okay, so you have just made your deal a disaster because you can't help anybody. If the buyer is a customer and nothing changes for you as my customer versus transaction, and you write this, tell me to write this ridiculous amendment, and I write it, but now I get to go to Laura and go, okay, so this is what they've asked me to do. Remember, I'm an order taker with respect to the customer. So now we know that the septic, we know this has to be fixed, but now we get to go back and present it in a better way that's going to work for both of you. So I can advise you and I can prepare that amendment and go back and put that in front of you. I have a better chance of the deal actually working and coming together and being done properly if I'm actually advising one of them. If you cannot walk this line, and I will tell you, it is a hard freaking line. You can refer that consumer for just that one property. You don't have to give up your client. You give them up for that one offer. So you amend the BDBA to say that for the purchase of 123 Smith Street, you will now be working with Laura. And if that doesn't come together, then you come right back to me.
When does transaction? No, never mind, you've already answered that.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
My question is, so what if you have James as a buyer client and Laura as a seller client? And you're advising both of them because you're in designated agency, you have agency relationship with both, right?
Sorry, wait, I don't understand. Are they clients or agents? You confused me.
Sorry, did I say so?
You made them agents.
Client relationship.
Buyer.
James as a buyer
Yep.
in a client relationship and Laura as a seller in a client relationship.
Mhm.
And then he wants to buy her house.
So I would either flick him into customer status
Right.
or refer him.
Right, exactly. But if, for instance, we do the customer status one, because like you said, if you explain the transaction brokerage to a seller, they never sign it. My thing is when I look at what you do for a customer, like I feel like the customer will say ever.
You're only ever going to ask a buyer to switch or a seller. You can switch either.
Yes.
If that consumer is super sophisticated and actually capable of doing it on their own. So I'll give you an example. If, let's say James has bought homes with me before, but let's say we bought condos. And now he wants to be in the woods and, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He's gonna go on well and septic. Doesn't know well and septic, he fell on it. He's an experienced buyer, but he's not an experienced buyer in that. He should be referred. Because the septic fails and now what? I can't help it, right? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're like, you know, first time buyer, first time seller, like you could have first time buyers and you could have investment sellers who go, yeah, it's fine. You can flip me over. So you withdraw the listing, you flip them into customer status. You do, anyway, that's the whole thing. Doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Right. The other
How do
thing,
you withdraw the listing and put them back? I don't understand.
don't worry about it. It's so
Okay.
rare. Don't.
Okay.
Like, it's so rare.
We'll cross that average.
You'll make
Yeah.
you'll
Thing, I
phone us.
guess.
Yeah,
I'll get that.
yeah. But it's very, very hard. And very few agents do it right. So, for example, you have a customer and they say, well, I need inspection, and you say, okay, you can give them 3 names. You're allowed to give names, but you're not allowed to say, pick this person. And always, whether it's client or customer, you need to make sure that they know they can hire whomever. You want that super clear, right? But the customer, you can give them 3 names, that's fine, right? And just say, what the wording you would say is, here are 3 professionals that we have used in the past. This is their contact information, websites, emails, phone numbers. Please reach out and research them and let me know who you'd like to use, if you choose to use any, or whomever you pick. So you're not like, that's as Switzerlandy as I can be for a customer. I just said, instead of Googling, here's 3 people we know are competent, but you need to interview. Right? Versus when you're a client situation, you tend to steer your people a little more strongly towards X person or Y person. Right? But it's a very, very hard line because it's not our nature. Our nature is that we want to help them. Right? Our nature is that we want to fix things. We want a perfect outcome for all of the people. That's what we want. Right? That's why you're doing this. You want every seller to get exactly what they want. You want every buyer to get exactly what they want. That's a really friggin' high tightrope to walk if you're on both sides.
And clarifying too, if you're on a team, technically a team member can't be the one referred to.
Correct. Has to be
They are-
outside the team. Yeah, it has to be outside the team. Yeah. Yeah. Now, this will confuse your head a little bit more. On a team, you can have 2 clients, right, on the same property for another listing. So let's say you and I are on a team, this James is listing. We could both have team clients that both write, but they have to know that the other person, we have another client that's writing. Right? And if we're 2 different people who've spoken, we have to basically not talk about the price and not look at it. You can't advise on price or details when there's 2 inside the team that do it.
And that would be the same if you're not on a team, but you had 2 clients who want to write on the same property.
Yes. So in some cases, usually what happens there is one of them flips into customer.
Okay.
Like usually there's one who's more, it just seems to work that way, that there's one who's more or ready. And what you can do, so let's say it's me and I write with you and I write with you and I make you my customer. Because you've done more deals. What would happen is if you win and you don't win, then I'll flip you back into agency once I've won, because then it's no longer a problem,
Right.
right? So I just need you to be a customer until you win,
Until you, right.
right? And then I can flip you back. But you will have decided the price and the conditions on your own. Because I can't advise you if I've advised her. Right?
But on a team, 2 different team members can write on the same property.
As long as the
Long as-
consumers are aware that another member of the team that there is another client in-house writing.
So both the seller and the buyers would have to know.
No seller doesn't have to know.
Just buyers. okay.
Yeah.
Does that have to be in writing or as long as
It should be. Yeah. He said, she said is generally not very successful.
Yeah.
And I have a question.
Yes, Cyril, sorry.
It's slightly off topic, but we're
That's a good squirrel question.
in
Carry
the
on.
same ballpark. How do you feel about the fact that an agent finds the lawyer and inspectors?
What? Sorry, the agent, what?
Gets the lawyer and the inspectors themselves.
I don't have a problem with that as long as it's an informed discussion with the client.
Okay. Yeah, and in my case, it was, and they were more than happy to let me.
Yeah, 99% of our clients use our people. It drives me crazy when they don't use my people. The deal is always more miserable when they don't use my people. But we're very clear that this is our list of people, who, you're welcome. We have it, we have it in writing. You're welcome to hire whomever you want. These are the people that we hire personally. It's the best recommendation I can give you, but you're under absolutely no obligation whatsoever. We also are very clear that we do not receive a penny from a single partner we work with, and that we're recommending them because we legitimately think they'll do the best job for them.
and you have
Yeah,
that in
and that
writing?
is that's exactly what I said to them, because I had my first accepted offer yesterday. Woohoo!
I wanna see that. on
But we
video.
have, yeah, and our team, as you probably are aware, we do have a pretty extensive list. So I told them I would make some calls, find the best price off the list, and they were more than happy with that.
Yeah, I would be really cautious about advising price as your metric.
Right.
Most of the professionals should be on par with each other.
Yeah, they're all,
And-
that's what I said that. They're all ballparkish, right?
Yeah, I would be very cautious about focusing on best price. Saving $100 on your lawyer and finding out they didn't register the second PID wasn't worth the $100.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where people are spending literally hundreds of thousands of dollars and they're nickel and diming over $50 on an inspector, like give
Right,
me a
right.
break, right? So it's about, giving them, these are the people that we would recommend, here's their contact information. You can take a look at them. You're welcome to call them. We know the prices. We have a price list. We keep a price list of our people every year. We update it. The people that are nickel, more nickel and dimey, but we'll budget them on the higher end so that if they choose someone who's less, it's a bonus versus the opposite.
Right.
There's no issue with you doing that. You do need to be very clear and you want it somewhere documented that they were under no obligation to hire these people and that it was their choice to do so. And again, I would just watch price. I don't know that I would research them for them. I don't know that I love that part of it, right? It would be more like, these are my trusted partners. If you, I can check based on who's available, you let me know, or, these are the prices, any one of them are good, blah, blah, blah. However you approach it, I do recommend you go and, look them up and, take a look and then let me know who you, of the three that I've given you'd like to use. But depending on what it is, even we've helped clients get quotes for different things, right?
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean they're going to use that person. Sometimes it's just a point of reference for negotiation or something like we were chatting about before, right? That, we know ballpark that this is going to cost X. Like we've got a roofer on call. I can get a quote for a roof in less than 24 hours. And, whether they use this guy or not, it doesn't matter. He gets enough business from us that he doesn't care. He'll go, right?
Right.
So, again,
Yeah.
you do want to have your own packet of people so that when you're either a seller or a buyer, you're not a victim to someone else's pricing. Right? You've seen it where you have 2 quotes for a roof and the buyer shows up with this one that's like $5,000 more. And you're like, has it got gold in it? Like, what is happening here? Right? Like, no, I'm not going to give you that. I'll give you this. I have 2 quotes from 2 reputable people. Take this or leave it. We'll still give you the roof, but it's going to be at this number. But if you don't have people, then you don't have that leverage on either side, right? Be careful about doing amendments where you literally pull numbers out of your ass, oh, I think it's going to be about X. Well, let's assume that everything that cost X a year ago now costs, X, 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 right? So,
Triple X.
yeah, we don't know, right? So again, it's sometimes it's just a point of reference and being very clear that they don't have to use those people. So we go back to agency for a second. It is when you're going through this and you're preparing your buyers and your sellers and you're explaining the transaction brokerage section of your SDBA, you can say, we're not allowed to do this at KW because it's not possible. The first line of the word says, upon your lawful instruction. In that whole transaction brokerage, that's what it says. Well, if I don't ask you, you're never going to give me the instruction. I'm never going to ask you because our broker's mean and never going to let me do it, right? So you could say, this is what will happen. If a buyer came to me, if a buyer called off the sign, this is what will happen. Either they will be a customer, which means whatever they tell me, I tell you, that I'm an order taker and I don't give any advice. My loyalty is always to you, or we will refer them to someone else if they want representation. Easy. Same thing when you're working with the buyer. What happens if you want to write on one of my listings? You're having the same conversation. That's how you explain the BDBA in that section. What's going to happen? You're setting expectations. So that after, if something comes up and they pick your listing, you can go, okay, remember, I can show it to you, but I can't advise you. I can be your tour guide, but that's it. They're like, hey, that's fine. Depending on the client. Or they're like, oh, or you know that they shouldn't, that they need help. You've been on 2 showings and they don't know what end is up. Then I don't care if they're 18 or 19, because you can't be 18, 19 or 65. Doesn't mean they know anything. If they need to be referred, you need to refer them. If you can't put your head down at night and close your eyes and not lose a moment's sleep about the choice you've just made or the advice you just gave, then you shouldn't have done it. Period. If you know that person shouldn't be a customer because they're out there over their head, then they shouldn't be a customer. And they might say, no, I'm pretty sure I can. You go, I know you think you can. However, you've never purchased on Well and Septic. It's great if it's all great. It's not great if it's not great. And I won't be able to help you navigate how to deal with that. Clear like mud? I also believe that you cannot write an offer for an SOBP as a customer. But you, let's say it's your listing and a buyer calls you and wants to write, well, the buyer needs to be a customer and they want to write an SOBP. How do you prepare an SOBP without giving advice? You can't. So you might refer them for the offer, but you still keep the listing. And if they don't win, it doesn't matter. They come back. If they win, then your trusted partner deals with the purchase. You deal with the listing, the 2 listings, and they deal with the buyer. In my opinion, it is impossible to do an SOBP and line it up and time it. And how do you do the conditions? And why do we line this up? And how do we price? Like, there's no way to do that without giving advice. If you can figure out a way, please teach me, because I don't know how to do that. So if we go back to the very beginning of this about being fiduciary focused versus functional, all of these things make sense. And so your best way to win the contract is with your knowledge. The odds of your clients getting out of the deal on inspection, if you know houses and you've prepared them for the things that could come up short of you climbing in the attic, then the expectations are set and are managed so that when the thing comes up, they go, okay, yeah, we talked about this. We're ready for this. And maybe there's obviously going to be things that come up that you're not a building inspector, that you didn't prep them for. That's fine. But maybe that's not such a big deal because the rest of the stuff was prepped. How do you keep your deals together? You need a guy, I'm sorry to say, but it is in most cases a guy, right? There's not a ton of female plumbers and septic people running around, I'm sorry to say, in my gender. It is what it is, right? You need a person. You need a finance person, you need a plumber, you need this, you need the people. And if we go back to being specific and measurable and realistic and truthful, think about accomplishing those in your seller presentation and your buyer presentation. If you prepped all of your clients with those as expectations, it's no different when we look at something like measurable. The cost of carrying the house versus negotiating at this price. That's measurable. That's a measurable fact that they can make an informed decision about. The septic's gone and the radon failed. Which one am I fighting for? I'm a lot likely getting both. Fight for the septic. But I'm going to prep the seller, the buyers, that I'm going to wait till I have all my inspections, because if I fight to the death over one thing and then something else shows up to bite me in the arse, I don't have any leverage left. So I'm going to set the expectations about being realistic. The seller's not going to give you $100,000 worth of things. But it's also relative to the price we paid for the house. If we got a smoking deal on the front end, I'm gonna get less on inspection. Make sense? So you can apply all of these items, specific, what am I looking for as a buyer? What does it need to have? What's my price? What's my location? What's my budget? What are they, it has to have 3 bedrooms, it has to have whatever the things are. I'm a seller, what's my time frame? How much money do I need to be able to buy the next house? Am I pre-approved? Those are specific questions. Measurable, same thing, time on market versus price. You know, what's my lease? You know, what's my rent? How much money do I have? What am I measuring? The cost of fixing this versus continuing to pay rent and throw money down the toilet, right? Accountable and attainable. Is what they're looking for attainable? Are you asking me to sell your house 50 grand more than it's worth? Well, that's not attainable. I can't do it. And accountable, are we gonna work together? Are we gonna communicate? Right, this is a relationship. Realistic. Am I realistic on the listing price of your house and how it's prepared and what you're allowing me to do? You know, I know we've had sellers in the past who the windows of time they'll give you for showings, you're like, are you kidding me? This is not gonna work. You know, it's I don't know, lakefront property and you can come at 7:30 p.m. Well, it's dark and no one's buying a house on a lake in the dark, right? So like, are you realistic? I can't do this. Like I'd love to tell you that I'm magic, but this is gonna be a problem. We need to have a conversation about this. And are you being truthful with them and with yourself? You can apply this to your personal goals, to your business goals, and you can definitely apply it to how you create your business with respect to what you're going to do for your sellers and what you're going to do for your buyers. And if you keep going back to that, it'll make you go, wait a second, wait a minute. You know, maybe it's something you stick up in your office. Everybody's brain works differently in terms of how they want to go forward. But something about you're in charge. They're hiring you because you're the expert. So be the expert. You don't need to be obnoxious about it, and that's not what I'm suggesting, but you need to be the expert. And being the expert means sometimes steering them in a different direction. When you go meet with your financial planner, do you expect them to say yes to every crazy idea you come up with, or are you looking for them to provide you guidance on what is the best decision and to give you options? Yes. So you can make an informed decision. Yes. Why is it different from us? But somehow we get stuck thinking all our job is to show houses and do what they tell us to do. I'm not saying you're not going to take your client's lawful instruction. That's not what I mean, right?
Yeah.
But you can only do what you can do. And sometimes your job is to say, maybe we should wait 6 months. Maybe you should pay off that whatever so that your purchasing power will go up the extra 15 or 20 grand we need to get you what you really want. Maybe your clients are renting and you've asked them what their lease is. Now it's not such a big deal. The odds of subletting are very high, but are you prepared to take that risk? If you're not, then we need to time this closer to the end of your lease. Maybe you need to pre-talk to your landlord to see if they would sublet you or if they'll let you out early. Let's have that conversation first before we get into an offer, spending money on inspections. Maybe you have clients who are on a very tight budget. And I know for us, for example, we typically do all the inspections at once, all at once. I go once. But maybe that's not the budget for that particular client. And we'll say, okay, we've been through the house. I know enough about houses to say, you know what, if we have to pick what we're going to do first, let's do septic before we do building. Because I don't have X-ray vision. It's just not one of my skills. Right? So let's do septic first because I don't want you to spend all the money on all the inspections, because if the septic's pooched and they're not prepared to work with us, then we're done. We don't need the building inspection.
Good thought of that. That's really good.
But you have to know enough about the house
Yeah.
to be able to be comfortable. It's not a guarantee by any means, but it's a question of which money am I spending first? Right? Unless they can tell me it's a newer septic or it's been sold recently and they have a video, that we have some comfort that if we spent both sets of money at the same time, we'd be fine. Then we're gonna pick what's the worst one first. If you're in Fall River, you want to do well flow recovery because they have terrible water. They have terrible water, quantity. But that's where I'm not selling in Yarmouth, because I don't know anything about Yarmouth and I don't know anything about their water quantity, but I know in Fall River and Wellington, that the odds are my well flow is gonna fail. Very high. Right? I know if I go to Williamswood, that I'm gonna have the highest arsenic in the city, it's gonna be out there. Right? You're only gonna learn this stuff over time. But if you're listening and I'm being realistic and working with my clients and I'm hitting these goals, then I'm not wasting their money. And even if the septic failed and the sellers were unpleasant and weren't prepared to work with us and we walked away, they're out $400, they're not out $1,800. So now the client's happy and they're perfectly happy to go on to the next one versus, oh my God, and blah, 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 now I don't have any money for inspections, and you kind of pooched yourself. They might say, I'd love to do it all one day, and say, yeah, I agree, and that's normally what I do. But maybe in this case, based on the budget, we should do X or Y. And they might say, no, I'm prepared. Okay, fine. But then you're not a yes man. I'm not telling them to go jump in the lake. I'm providing an option. And I'm giving them a reason as to why I'm suggesting X or Y. If it's a seller, same thing. If we did this, then I think I could position you here in the market. If we're not prepared to do this, then this is where I need to position you in the market. I want to sell as is. Okay, great, but doesn't mean you have to personally fix it, but depending on what it is, you're fixing it. So we need to account for it. As is not really an as is thing. You guys all know this, right? Please don't write as is on your, it's a first sell banks don't like it. Anyway, but there's as is, but if there's mold, you can dig your heels in all you want. Who's buying it?
That's okay.
Not at this price. So what do you want? Reservations. So I can't tell them that I can convince a buyer's agent that they should not care about the gigantic amount of mold in the attic. I'm not that good. I'm not that good. If it's a fire sale and it's a flip and it's, okay, maybe. But in most properties, that's not how they're priced. So that goes back to you being the fiduciary and how you're giving advice and what you're doing. And that's why transaction brokerage doesn't work. Because you basically wipe your fiduciary duties. And it's uncomfortable. Oh, it's uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. Thoughts, questions, comments? That's what I'm going to leave you with today. Your brain's hurt a little bit.
I'm today about for sure. So it's all good if that's what you want.
I think the problem is we get very caught in the mechanics of, my listing presentation, but then we forget about the big part. That's the tiny part. The big part is what do you do next? And I will tell you that 99% of your deals will be better if you've set the what ifs up. And if you ask a gazillion questions. Like I had a buyer consult yesterday, client's moving in from out of province. And we had the central air conversation. And they said they don't like the look of the mini splits. And I said, well, then I've only got two kinds of houses I can show you. They have to be ducted already with electric, or it has to have a furnace. Do you want to swap it? Those are my only choices. You're going to limit yourself. Because forced air is surprisingly not the most common. It would be hot water based boiler. Right? You can't hook anything up to a hot water based boiler. Right? You got to go mini splits. Right? But then you also have to have a conversation about, okay, it's cooler at night and then whatever. And they're going to do what they're going to do. But I'm going to tell you, yeah, no, I'm not going to. They have other things that are also very important to them. That, yeah, that's a unicorn. I'm not that good. Right? So what, if we had to compromise, what are we prepared to compromise on? Right? When you're selling, it's gonna be about, this is the price, but this is the other thing that we will have to account for. But doesn't matter, it's gonna have to be dealt with. Whatever it is. It's usually a big thing, right? We're not talking about cracking the tile, we're talking about insurability, mortgageability, saleability. And, you know, well, so-and-so told me that that wouldn't matter. You can say, well, I can, you know, assure you based on whatever, my training, who my broker is, whatever the hell you want to say, I don't care, right? That, yeah, it will be a problem. And if it's not, I'm okay that you have extra money. Right? But you hear all the horror stories. Oh my God, I got to closing and I had to pay this and this and that, and oh my God, and you know, right? It's like the property tax conversation. We've talked about this. I think we talked about this together. Right? You've got to prep them. The taxes are going up to the purchase price. Ignore the tax bill they see online. It's not real.
Yeah, there's so many people asking.
Yeah, it's not real. Just forget it's not there. I don't know why the bank wants that number and uses it. It's good for us because our clients would probably never qualify if they were given the real tax amount, but yeah. So anyway, think about this, Jazz. Think about what's next after the presentation and what do you want to be known for with your clients? Honestly, if you go that way, then you know what? You're going to build a machine that works for you and that you're excited about. And you're going to have systems that work in the sense of when something comes up, I know what to do.
That'd be great.
So if you don't know stuff about houses, number one, go to open houses, go to all the agent open houses. Do not go to get recruited, but go eat their cookies and drink their wine and learn about houses. Take any of the courses that are ever offered here through NSCR anywhere on wells or septics or whatever. Don't think you know it all. You're going to have some kind of heating system that comes out and bites you in the ass one day when you're standing in the house with a client. They go, what's that? And you go, ooh, I do not. That was a bit embarrassing. For the basics like that, right? You know, and meet with professionals, learn. Do you understand sump pumps? Do you understand drainage? Do you really understand septics? If you don't, meet with them. Take the courses. Because I'm telling you, that's what's going to set you apart. You need to be the expert. Both buyers and sellers, because you need to fight that buyer's agent who knows more than you. You can't have the buyer's agent know more than you about the infrastructure of the house you're listing. Absolutely not.
Is there a resource that you can recommend, for getting more detailed information on sewing? Because just the simple bylaws that are online aren't super clear.
So yes,
I know there's assumptions and.
yeah, so zoning is the most miserable thing in the entire world in HRM. Because as HRM amalgamated, every small nook, town, village, whatever, had their own zoning. So for example, residential zoning, south of Inglis is different than north of Inglis. It's different in Sackville than it is in Coal Harbor. Totally different in the Passage because it was a village, right? So you have to look it up every freaking time.
Yeah, I'm struggling with that right now.
Yeah, so you have to open the 190 page PDF.
Yeah.
And go to the thing that you're looking for that particular section. From a compliance perspective and a cover your ass perspective, I will tell you to find it, highlight it, and then send it to your client and ask them to call the planning department to discuss.
Ask me better to call.
Yes, you should not be, if you're talking to the planning department, then you want the email that comes from them to go to both of you, right?
I've done,
Like you-
ask them, and I think, can you send that to me in an email such that I can forward that?
Yes,
to my
yes, and it needs to be based on my conversation. This is what I found. Please call so-and-so at this email to discuss. You cannot make those perfect statements that it's going to be allowed to do X or Y.
Yeah.
Same as HST, since we're scrolling off to broker stuff for just a couple seconds here, is you are not allowed to determine whether something is HST exempt or not. Absolutely not.
How do we figure that out?
They figure it out. They go to their lawyer, they go to CRA, they go to their
Oh.
accountant. You
Okay.
do not. Or you could be in trouble and paying HST.
So tell them to go to lawyer, accountant.
CRA.
CRA,
Yeah.
those are the, those are the.
Those are the resources.
That's what
And just use POL where it says exempt or not.
POL does not say anything about it.
Oh,
Don't trust another agent.
Always.
But this is usually about you listing. That's usually about, I'm talking about
Yeah.
listing, right?
Right.
Because the lawyer review, you know, if you have questions, the lawyer review will catch it on the buy side. But if you list it and say it's HSD exempt and it's not, and you didn't ask, and you're the one that determined it was HSD exempt, guess who's paying HSD?
Are most residential units HST exempt though?
Most are, if they're owned by a company, they will have HST included in the purchase price. But that's not the buyer's problem, but it does have to be disclosed,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
If it was used for commercial use, then it could be, but again, not your discussion. You want to say to your client, I'm like 99% sure that it's X or Y. But you need to check and for your own sake, you also want it in writing from whomever told you. And then I will take that in writing to protect you.
So do you ask all of your residential clients? No.
No.
Only if something's
Land,
land.
don't
or-
decide for yourselves
Yeah,
the tax status of land. And if it's a mix of commercial and residential zoning, then it's usually based on percentage. But those are broker calls you can make. But my message to you is you are not CRA. You do not get to determine whether something that could be subject to tax is subject to tax. You want that coming from a professional. Right?
So as a listing agent, you need to make calls about that.
No.
but-
No, you're making your client make a call about that.
Okay, right, okay.
For tax, you're not doing it.
They need to call a lawyer or CRA.
One of the three will have the answer for them, right? CRA definitely will, right? I mean, they're gonna have to disclose it anyway on their taxes, so whatever, right? You know, it is what it is, right? There is a guide online, but it's CRA website. I would tell them to phone. Okay? But, or their lawyer might know, their accountant might already know, like, but it needs to come from someone other than you. Because we're talking HST on hundreds of thousands of dollars here.
Yeah.
This is not, and you know, your E and O, it would be questionable whether you'd be covered because you're giving advice outside your scope. Right? Unless you also happen to be a tax expert with CRA, which I don't think most people are, right? Then,
So the only times HST would be applicable would be land, commercial, mixed use, or new construction, right?
yes, generally. Or commercially owned residential, right? Or business use residential, like someone used residential as an Airbnb. It wouldn't necessarily be above the price, but it could be included. And so if your seller was selling that property and they've been using it as a business, they need to check because their net dollar, how you price it is different. Their net dollar is different. If they think they're getting X and now suddenly they're paying tax off that, right? It's the same thing as capital gains. You're not giving capital gains advice, people. You're telling them to call their lawyer or their accountant. Why do you think you know one and not the other? Why do you think you're extra HST experts, but we're not giving them capital gains advice? Right? I recently have clients who are moving from PEI. And I think their advice is wrong, but anyway, they're taking it from their other realtor and I have it in writing. I have it in writing in many places. They haven't lived in a house for a year. And they're moving. And they're changing provinces, but not for work and not because of a family member. So I think they're subject to capital gains. They're saying they're not. I literally have it in writing in 3 different places. I've asked them to verify it with an accountant, with a lawyer, with CRA. And they're saying they're not. I'm like, okay, well, it's not I'm the buyer. I'm the buyer's agent. Right? But I brought it up. The other agent didn't bring it up. The other agent is telling them, oh, no, you should be fine. And I'm like, 15% on $1 million is a lot, right? That's just my opinion, right? But, so again, I'm looking at the rule. To me, they aren't exempt from the rule. But my advice is that you need to check with an accountant, a lawyer, CRA. You don't have people, I can get you people, but I cannot give you that advice. Because we are.
Fiduciary.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Cyril.
Thank you,
And
Mary.
thank you very much. It was great as always.
Have a lovely day.
You too.